Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the As Always podcast, episode 124. I am one of your hosts, Tyler, joined not as always, but one of many times I've been joined by this man, one of the four pillars, Ethan or Fishy. Welcome, my friend. How are you doing?
Hi, how's it going? This is a little bit odd, isn't it? Like, no James for the first time in the history of this podcast. No James, and naturally, probably not the first thought, but somehow it winds up being me.
No, you were my thought. It had to be you or George. If I was going to have a co-host, it wasn't James. It had to be you or George. So it'd have to be one of the pillars, a familiar face to the show. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever on the As Always podcast or Kill Connor Club in the history of this 124 episodes, James is not here. If some of you may not know, if you haven't seen on Twitter or any of James' announcements, but he is taking a personal break at the moment from content creation and the whole this whole space at the moment. He's worked his ass off, obviously, with the whole COVID stuff going on and the whole self-isolation, James being sick with suspected coronavirus at one point a few months ago, and then the big project with the Witch Project, which if you haven't watched yet, go check it out on this channel, so go do that. That's of course if you're watching on YouTube. People who could be listening on the many podcast services we offer. But if you haven't seen James's Witcher 3 retrospective, highly recommend it. But James has taken a break. He wanted to be here. He offered. He said, like, I'll be right to the podcast, but I think, and we both agreed, it's probably best for his health, mental health and well-being, that if he's going to take this break, he takes a full break. We've got the podcast covered. We can do it. We're here to talk about video games. Plenty of Assassin's Creed Valhalla I want to talk to you about, Ethan, because you know far more than I do. I literally, to get up to date, I've been watching your videos. So
I know too much. I know too much.
You know so much.
Yeah, it's far too much.
I've got many questions for you, and we'll get into that. The Last of Us Part 2 had some huge amount of gameplay this week. And there's plenty more to talk about. So we'll get into it. And I appreciate, Ethan, I really do. When I put out the bat signal, you answered the call. You saved the day. And here, James and I never miss a show. We just don't do it. So we've always agreed that, if one of us, for whatever reason, couldn't make a show, we'd just keep on keeping on. I'd want James to do the same. And he's happy for us to do this. And it's exciting. This is what I love to do. And I understand James is in this space. This is his full-time life, and you need a break from that sometimes. Like, I totally understand that. I have my times where I've been totally burnt out from my full-time job and full-time life. But to me, Ethan, like, these podcasts, this is my break. This is what I need to survive. Well, this is when I'm burnt out. I need this space. So
you need this is the space.
Exactly, man.
Fair
exactly.
Enough.
So as much as I understand, James is burnt out from this, not from this, but he's just going through a lot right now. When he's worked his ass off, he's one of the hardest working people I know. He's the best content creator I know. No offense to you, Ethan. You're to me second to him. That's just, but he's my business partner. You got to understand that. I feel that way. You're certainly both better than me.
It's just one of those things.
It's just one of those things. And
I'll take my everyone knows me as the funny one, not the good one, so it's fine. I'll take that. I'll take whatever I can take.
We all have our own things. Like I'd like to think I'm the podcast host of the community, like the number one. I'd like to think that.
Yeah, fair enough. When it comes to thinking about this community, James is the best for me as well, because when it comes to like After Effects and things, I don't have a fucking clue.
No.
Some of the magic that James pulls out of that software, I look at it and I go, what? How do you do this? What on earth?
No, I know.
It is alarming just how good he is, and if you've spent more than 3 seconds staring at the interface that is After Effects, you'd understand just how talented he actually is. So when I say that he's earned this break after that Witcher video, I think everyone has no choice but to agree, because that 100%. Is fucking outstanding.
He's the best. He's the best. Like, I thought he had to have taken some of that stuff from. Half the time I watch, I'm like, he's taken that from somewhere else. He didn't. There's no way he made that, but he makes those intros he does for all those retrospectives, all the way from that Fable one to Red Dead Redemption, all the way now to his Witcher 3 one. This stuff that you think he has to have then taken from somewhere else and done a little bit of an edit or a filter over the top. It's like, no. He made all those amazing effects and animations himself. He's the best. He's just the best. And we'll miss him. We'll miss him here today.
He'll be back. He'll be back eventually.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
He'll be back and better than ever.
100%. But we keep on keeping on. The shows go on here at As Always Entertainment. That is brought to you by the great people over at patreon.com/as always. So thank you, of course, to our Patreon producers. We wouldn't be here without them. It's Ethan's favorite part of the show. We read the Patreon list.
It is the best part. It just is. It's lovely. I get to do nothing. It's great.
Yeah.
Sit here and make no noise.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. The list is amazing. So thank you to our producers, King Richard III, Henry, Damian, Avry Dobbs, Josh Devillier, a red-crowned crane, helped kill my family, a.k.a. Olberik, DIDDLOTIC, Viridian, Real Cinnamon Hawkins, a.k.a. H+12, and Bullseye 47. Thank you very much. Without you, we wouldn't.
They always catch me off here. Those names.
Oh,
they
dude.
Always catch me off.
It was the Four Pillars podcast, the last As Always podcast.
It was.
That we had the whole Red Crown Crane thing. And then we did Clubhouse last week. And the names, everyone changed their name to Red Crown Crane. It was fucking tremendous. So I wonder how many we'll get when we read the list in a second. It's a scary thought. What's about to happen. But again, if you like what you're listening to here and you want to hear or see more, head over to patreon.com/as always for just $1 a month. You get exclusive access to the Clubhouse podcast, the best podcast on the internet. Next week, James is still taking his leave of absence, so it's going to be co-hosted by my housemate, Jared. We're going to get drunk next weekend and record it at my house. It's going to be tremendous.
That's going to be
a nice special episode. It's going to be magical. So be sure to check that out. It's just $1 and you can join us. The great community. It's the People's Podcast. It's powered by the people. All the topics are from you. There's over 83 episodes you can listen to right now. Go do it. 84 actually. We're at 85 next week. Holy shit. Again, for $5 up, you get our Patreon list. So thank you to these guys. Once again, King Richard III, Henry, Damian, Avry Dobbs, Josh Devillier, a red crown crane, helped kill my family, a.k.a. Olberik, DIDDLOTIC, Viridian, Real Cinnamon Hawkins, a.k.a. H+12, Bullsec 47, Adam Sunling, Casey Wood, Pink Flame 3 and 3. Is that Dennis? Dennis?
Yeah, I do apologise.
No, it's totally fine.
He does it for attention, the fucking bastard. I'm going to go and fucking put him down in a minute. It's going to...
Yeah.
I'm going to fucking kick him in the teeth. No.
If you could put your dog down during this podcast,
if you could euthanize your dog, that would be great.
I'd make a highlight clip. I'll post it on the internet. Because you're not technically a host of the show. You're a guest host. We won't actually be cancelled. It'll be you that's cancelled from our show. All right. We'll get clout.
It's all right. If she killed his dog, cancel him. No. Yeah. We're going to be here all day.
For less. We are going to be here all day. Okay. Tony the Arbiters, Delightful Penis, Alfie Rosell, Drowns Cats, Jesper Olsen, Lumistrad, Murray 5380 is the king of RPGs, Kimasabe Gamer Cream Pies, Red Crowned Crane, a.k.a. also known as a.k.a. The Cree, Josh J. Anderson, Fat Fuck Cuck, Brendan Abiku Overlord, Matt Ravjai, Red Crowned Crane, Bleeding Edge 274, Zixon, Benedict Clubbers, Gwen Hughes, 2018, 1998, 20 Max H, Gene is doing bits in the coal mines, Owen Brain, Zeke, a.k.a. Frank from Destination Wedding, Son of a Bitch, OG Dogger, Harrisy, a.k.a. Bat Assassin or Watts, Furious Coco, Sab 2557, Nick Miller, the ACMJS, Radok, Casper Cross, Mexidor, Assassin, Connor DeRose, Bully in the Alley, Connor Knowles, Kyle Estjaws, Victor Eliasson, Emil Catborg, Joshua Mora, Walshy, Ginkgo Swag, Red Chunked Crane, Mass the Bash, Ashton, a.k.a. The Weekend Simp, Conversations, our new bro, George Welford, plus our new bro, George Welford, Joe the Sexy Boy Smith, Joe a.k.a. Red Crown Crane, Evan Brown, Winona Ryder a.k.a. Lindsay from Destination Wedding, Luca, Alfie Worbert, Brian Ford a.k.a. Red Crown Smurf, Sally swiftly shooed 7 silly sheep, the 7 silly sheep, Silly Sally shooed, Shilly Shallage South. Fishy, our friend right here, our guest co-host today, Team Anna Travis, Billy the Jim Tunnel, Captain Robinson, and Gamer, I hardly know her. Thanks for vintage lads. Help out this podcast.
Red Crown Crane appeared too many times.
I don't even remember what Red Crown Crane came from. It was like the last.
We're talking about Ghost of Tsushima, and I was thinking about all the wildlife, because it uses the wildlife as like an open world queue to go to different places, as opposed to like a HUD or anything that invades the screen. And we were talking about what that wildlife could be, and I listed the Red Crown Crane, which is some Japanese bird,
right? Because of course you need a bird mechanic.
I think we focused on it too much, and then it became a meme. And I think it's really funny, like when you read that list, and so many people change their names to absurd shit and memes from the community. They don't do it for appreciation of their name when you read out the list. They do it because they think what they've put there is fucking hilarious, and sometimes it really catches you off. Jesus Christ.
That's the key. That's the key to the list I found, because it used to be, obviously, people's like, oh, I want my name on the list to be read on the podcast. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of names. Is that it's kind of boring. But then it's gotten interesting, because now people are like making their names funny, and it's trying to get a reaction out of us, and it's actually made it fun and entertaining part of the show to listen to, rather than that thing people would just be like, skip.
Yeah, it is magnificent. I'm trying to remember the one. It's that bloody tongue twister guy. He's pledged to me as well, and he keeps changing. What a legend. He keeps changing his name to another tongue twister every single day.
Well, I appreciate it, though, because he keeps it interesting. Every single time I read the list, it's a new one. What was Silly Sally swiftly shooed 7 silly sheep. The 7 silly sheep. Silly Sally shooed shilly shallied south. Wow, tremendous! What a name!
It's genius. I don't know where he comes up with them.
It is genius. I'll give him that.
It is truly magnificent. But you gotta love that list.
Yeah, no, I do. Absolutely, I do. At the moment, Ethan, do you have any games you're playing since we last spoke only 2 weeks ago on the podcast?
2 weeks ago, I was talking about how I'd started replaying the Mass Effect trilogy. Well,
right.
I finished replaying the Mass Effect trilogy more or less a couple days back. No, a bit more than that. But yeah, no, I blasted through them. The kind of game that you get sucked into. Obviously, you know this. You've played them. The kind of game that you play and you're like, fuck, I just can't leave now. I have to finish this. I have to invest myself in this world. And sure, there are some times where it does. I'm not going to sit here and say the Mass Effect games are the best games ever made ever, because that would just be fucking wrong. But there's something about the games that makes me love them a lot, and it's something it's my next sort of big hefty project, if you will, is talking about that thing. Because these games, what I love about them isn't the gameplay necessarily. It's fine, it's great, and it works. It's a sort of RPG of style. It's one of those games that when you're playing it, you kind of feel like the world is authentic, if you will. That's the thing that I like about it so much. It's a fucking magnificent world-building like masterpiece as far as the universe is concerned. And that's what I love about Mass Effect, and that's what I've been playing through, and I've just been recapturing that magic, if you will, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And it's properly put me in the mood for making this video. That being said, it's fucking hefty, and it's really hard. It's not so much the length of the script. The script is pretty long, sure, but, I mean, well, James made a 3.5-hour video about The Witcher. I don't think he can tell me about long. And when it comes to the script, that's not the problem. It's formatting it in a way that makes me think, yep, this works. Because I've been struggling with that. It's finding the right format for the video. And I think I've got it now. But that was hard.
James wrote like half a fucking novel of pages. What was like 70 pages or something? Insane.
He wrote a full-on book. He just did.
Imagine writing half a novel in like 2 weeks, which is what he did.
You know what? If James actually wrote a novel, I'd probably actually read it, to be fair. I think it would be a good novel. James, if you ever hear this, which you probably will, read a novel, please. No, read a novel. Write a novel.
Write a novel. I'm sure he's read a novel.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't read. Fuck it. Evidently, I confuse read and write, so obviously I don't read. But no, that's all I've been playing through recently is Mass Effect. Back on that point.
So is the video like? It's not gonna be like a retrospective. What's it gonna be looking at specifically in the trilogy?
Well, like I said, the biggest point about the trilogy, the thing that I love about them and the thing that I absolutely loathe about Andromeda is the world building. It's how Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 create this magnificent world, and it's all like, and it's just great to be a part of it, to experience when you're playing the games. The thing that I don't like about Andromeda being, this is something that I plan on addressing at the start of the video before moving on because it's not really relevant, is that it takes you away from all of that and isolates you from it, so it doesn't matter, it's not relevant anymore. And I think if you create a universe like Mass Effect and then you go off and do what Andromeda did, which was put you fucking 2.5 billion light years away in a different galaxy, it cuts you off from that. It's like, well, what was the point then? Why did he create this magnificent world only to build it up to a point where you've saved the galaxy, you've taken away that stress, and then you've gone, you know what, we need to up the stakes, so we're going to go elsewhere completely and forget about all this that you've built. And as much as I do understand why they wanted to try that, I also think that it was fundamentally ridiculous because that galaxy is so great in Mass Effect, and that's the thing that I love about it. So what I want to be talking about in this video is the world building and how Mass Effect constructs this magnificent, immersive, warm-feeling galaxy full of mystery and wonder, if you will. And that's the sort of thing that I kind of like about it. It's like...
Well, it makes you believe all those alien races are real, with real history, real depth.
It's the depth there, and how it feeds it to you in this authentic way. Like, for example, one thing that I really love, it's a minor feature, but I love it, is when you've got your squad with you, you can choose whoever you want with you at certain points, unless it's integral to a character. They're not necessarily relevant in that moment. You can choose whoever you want, but they'll still give commentary and they'll still say things, regardless of how relevant it is to them. Like, these characters are all voiced to the point where they will give commentary on almost anything, but most of these dialogues you'll never hear. Yeah, and it's one thing I've noticed. I think there's a good example in the Citadel DLC, and I love this line. When you go into this like club, it's like a casino. You can take whoever you want with you, like in your crew. Well, obviously you've got one slot is taken up by this mandatory character, and then you can take in another like crew member, whoever you want. A lot of people choose more boring choices, but I decided, you know how I'm gonna bring fucking Rex, and so it was an amazing piece of dialogue in there, and I thought, oh god, most people don't notice this. I won't go into it in case most people haven't played Mass Effect, because, you know, it's a kind of game you have to experience yourself and go through without anyone telling you what decisions to make and when, unless you get Garrus killed. You know what I mean?
Imagine that. Like, I would turn off the game. You failed the game. You have failed. Didn't we? I feel like I talked about this a few years ago with James when he first played the trilogy.
Did. When he was first playing 2.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like you were on the podcast with us.
It was us, and we lectured him about why he needs to replay the entirety of 2 and save Garrus. and it was the best thing ever.
He did do it. He went back and he played it to save Garrus. I'm like, if Garrus is dead in Mass Effect 2, you have failed the trilogy. You can't go on to 3. You have literally lost. Yeah. You failed.
Yeah, you can get him killed in 3 as well if you don't have the extended cut installed. And
true.
And that was that's worse because you're right at the very end. You know.
I don't know. At least like you've gone through everything with him. Whereas like if he's you're gonna go through all of 3 without him? That's impossible. Garrus is the best fucking character. You could do a whole. You should just do a video on Garrus. You should not even worry about this whole.
Oh no! When I did a video a while back on something about Mass Effect, and on the thumbnail, people criticised the fact that I didn't put Shepard on there. But I'm like, it's Garrus, man. It's fucking. Who else would you put there? I'd put Garrus there because he's
more important than Shepard.
Garrus is the best character in Mass Effect.
I agree.
He is the 100%. Absolute best. Without Garrus, it's just not worth playing. Like he is the character. He is. Mass Effect, but you play as Garrus would probably do me in. But I like Garrus as a great character.
I don't even know why he's so good. He's always there. He's always there.
He's the designated best mate. Like he's Shepard's best mate. That is what Garrus is. That's what he becomes.
Yeah. He's the most loyal. He's your right hand.
He is the guy. He's the guy that you run into him early in all 3 games, and he's one of the characters that you always wind up having with you right at the end of the game. Like at the end of 1,
he's always taking him on the last mission. It's like Garrus and I guess someone else.
It's always whenever I'm playing Mass Effect, it's always if I get the choice, Garrus or someone else. If this mission is integral to one character, 9 times out of 10 the other character is going to be Garrus for me. It's just how it goes. Garrus is non-negotiable in that squad.
100%.
He just is. You have to take him with you because his commentary is great as well, and he's got this really like I don't know if it's like a dry sense of humor or if it's more like a warm sort of thing. But he has some fucking cracking liners, like one-liners, if you will, at times. And it's pretty funny to listen to him just, spew nonsense. Because while he's a capable soldier, sometimes when in dialogue, you're like, oh, he's fucking funny guy as well. So that's what I like about him.
He's clever. He's the best. Garrus the fucking best. Well, I'm excited for this video. The Mass Effect world building, you're right. It's 100% one of the best parts. It's probably the best part of the trilogy. Is what makes it so special. Is that it, like Star Wars or other sci-fis, to me it's the video game
space opera,
Star Wars. It's a space opera, and you learn there's so much history and backstory to all the different races, and you believe it every time you get to visit these planets. Even in that 3rd game, there's planets you go to that you've heard about throughout the trilogy, but you've never gone, and you finally go to them, but you already feel like you know them.
Yeah, because you can read about them, and you can visit them,
hear stories about,
and you can read about it. You can sort of like read files in like your codex, or when you're just flying about in your ship, you might not be able to land, and then you can then like you said, you hear stories about them in small little places that you wouldn't expect to find that information, or maybe in the main story as you're going through, someone will talk about it, or in Mass Effect 3 where you revisit places that you've been to in Mass Effect 1, like Novaria, which is like, obviously it looked a bit snowier in 1, but in 3, I mean, it did set back on a couple of things, I will admit. But there's this, it's just the intricacy of that universe. Like, it's not the most in-depth and like game you'll ever play. It's not. I wouldn't even necessarily consider it an open world game per se, because it's, while it is sort of open, it's more open ended than open world, if you will. Like once you're launched into the world, like the galaxy, and you can go from place to place in any order that you want. But when you're down there, it's mostly linear in outside of hub areas like the Citadel.
Yet somehow it's a unique experience that you feel like is yours.
It's not. Yeah, it's exactly. It's the kind of thing that you can tailor to your own experience, because you can go in Mass Effect 1. The moment you get the Normandy and you undock from the Citadel and go out in that world, the main story missions you can do in any order that you want. And if you do them in a different order, for example, if you don't get Liara first, once that mission becomes available, if you go back and get her later, she'll mistake you for a hallucination, because she's been trapped in this bubble for a long time, and it's just such an incredible experience to be able to see these differences. And sometimes when you get crucial missions in, say, Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3, I think more so Mass Effect 3, but in these crucial missions, if you don't do them as soon as possible after you get them, that you might automatically fail or get a less favourable outcome, because you didn't do them quick enough, and the threat has already come and decimated those people. I think one example is Grissom Academy in Mass Effect 3, in which if Jack survived the suicide mission, she becomes sort of like a mentor for a few students there. And if you don't go and help out at Grissom Academy as soon as you possibly can, Cerberus comes along, takes these students and Jack prisoner, and later on in the game, they're sort of turned into Cerberus things, like Cerberus... well, they're sort of converted, if you will, like indoctrination, but a bit more shit, if you get me. And that is the thing, that it's just such a fantastic, intricate world. That's the thing. It doesn't have to be the most complex. It doesn't try to be the biggest. It doesn't try to necessarily be the best game. But what it does do is it builds this world that feels authentic and alive and atmospheric. Yeah. And it does it so well. And it just feels so unique as a game. And that's the thing. It's one of the most unique trilogies I think you could probably play. Like, sure, it's got similarities to KOTOR because it's the same developers, BioWare, isn't it? KOTOR was that's sort of how it was conceptualized, isn't it? It was originally going to be like a Star Wars game in the theme of KOTOR and things like that, and then BioWare went, we want to make our own sort of space opera adventure, and that's how it came about. But you get what I'm trying to get at with that is it does it in a way that surpasses even KOTOR. Is
100%. I played KOTOR and it's a brilliant game in its time, but Mass Effect took what it did and just built on it, because obviously Star Wars was an established universe and was telling its own story in a different era. But
and Mass Effect establishes itself.
Exactly, established itself, and it did it through characters and personal stories. And the fact that you have a squad is you get to spend a lot of time really connect to all these different alien races that you hear, these personal beefs that different races have with each other that are in your squad, but yet you find out how they become friends even though their races have actually fought each other in wars, and you pick loyalties and you go to these some of them it's the more personal stories about family, some of them it's about wars and honor and status and politics depending on where they're from and the planets, their races, everything like that, and or their species, I should say. But
well, they use the word races in the game, so it kind of works.
True. And with that, it helps you develop an understanding of the deeper world and history behind it, and makes that feel deeper and deeper and deeper. And the fact that when you hear stories about the Krogan homeworld, Krogan homeworld in Mass Effect 1.
Tuchanka.
Tuchanka.
You don't hear the name until 2, but...
Exactly, so... when you finally go there, it feels like you know it already. Like, I remember the first time you go there, it's not even the first game, but I felt like I already knew that place.
Yeah, no, I
just
get what you
because
mean.
of the stories. Like, that's so special. There's never a game where you feel like you've been to a location before you've been there, just based on the stories you've heard, the character interactions you've heard about it. You believe it. You believe it's a real place before you go there. And that's... I don't think there's any video game that can make me feel like a pixelated place is real before I've even seen that pixelated place.
It is... that's what I mean when I say it's unique. It's a unique take on world building, and what I like about it is it doesn't do what other space operas do, which is explain off a lot of things as just because that is the universe that you're entering. With Mass Effect, humanity is still in its when it comes to like its relationship with the galactic community and interstellar travel, it's still in its infancy. Like they're newcomers. They've only been in a part of the galactic community for I think just under 30 years at the start of Mass Effect, and humanity's still not trusted, and they're still not trusting, if you will. And the entire story of the 3 games, really, as you go through this character development, is humanity coming to find its place in the galaxy, and then beyond that, achieving this galactic unity, which is required to deal with this Reaper threat. And I don't think there are many cutscenes in gaming that has as much power as when the full fleet just arrives back at Earth at the end of 3. Not many scenes. Not many, I'm smiling just thinking about it. Not many cutscenes in gaming have as much kick as that. It's just fucking awesome, is what it is. And I think it sets it up great, delivers it great, and it's just such a magnificent experience. And oh god, it's going to be a great video. It's going to be a great talking point on a video as well. Jesus.
Yeah, I can't wait. I've been playing the Mafia Trilogy.
Have you?
Yeah, I have. I talked a little bit on Clubhouse last week about it, but I've never played Mafia 3 until now because I saw... Well, this is how I got duped into it, right? I saw on Twitter, obviously, the remaster or the remake. Yeah. The remake of Mafia 1. I've never played Mafia 1. I've only played Mafia 2. It's one of my all-time favourite games. So I thought, oh, cool, they've done a little bit of a remaster, sort of a Mafia 2, and all trilogies all together. I'll just buy all 3 and play all 3. I've never played 3, and I've never played 1. And then I'm like, oh, wait, 1's not actually out yet. And I just paid for it all. I'm like, oh, that's the one I kind of really wanted to play. I guess I'll play 2 and I'll try 3. And then 2, bit of a shit show.
Oh yeah, the remaster doesn't do a few things. Let's be honest.
Bit of a shit show.
On PC, it's pretty damn good. My biggest problem is when I close the game, my PC has to be restarted, otherwise it thinks it's still open. But when it's not a particularly well optimized game, is it? Like there's bugs, a lot of bugs, and I think I had quite a few of those. For example, I was, when you're escaping, like you're trying to hit this shop and then another gang comes along, and I can't really remember most of it. It's been ages since I played Mafia 2, and then I replayed it for a couple of hours of it for stream, and I haven't really touched more of it. And it glitched out in the stairwell, and the cops wouldn't come out onto the rooftop. So I thought I was good to go across, but it wouldn't let me. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And I think that was just one of many points where I thought, oh fuck, this is a bit glitched. But I don't know, it's been mostly okay.
Yeah, it's just been... I haven't played a lot of it. I've just seen lots and lots of clips of people and their frame rate issues and the sound being totally fucked up. I was like, oh, God. And it doesn't look really any different. I'm sure it does, but it's just been so long since I played it, and you're used to games remember it better anyway. Exactly, it's how you remember it, because you're used to games looking amazing. I just bought, people will notice that my camera's on slightly different angle for this show, because I've gotten rid of my big TV. It's in the middle of my desk, because it's a 6-year-old TV. It's not even 4K, and I bought this beautiful 32-inch 4K.
It's not even 4K. Not even 4K.
Well, the old one's a piece of shit. It's not even fucking 4K. What's even the point of having it now?
Yeah,
but my consoles aren't 4K, so it doesn't matter. But I wanted to get a 4K TV.
Yeah, just because,
Because but also next gen consoles are coming at the end of the year, so I need that preparation.
You got to take advantage of the hardware.
Exactly.
Otherwise, what's the fucking point?
Exactly right.
I need to do the same.
Even still, I bought. Because you can't buy 4K televisions smaller than 40 inches. I'm like, I don't need 40 inches. It's too big. And this TV's always been too big, especially when it's on my desk. So it's a 32. I bought a 32-inch desktop monitor, and it's built for a nice LG one for gaming on. And the color, just already, not even on a 4K console, just a day one Xbox One or a day one PS4. fucking gorgeous clarity. Already difference. I'm already noticing the difference. I'm like, I can't wait till I'm on a fucking 4K console. Holy shit.
Yeah, no.
Holy shit.
My first thing
I
when
can't
I
play
got,
anything old anymore after that because it'll all look shit.
Yeah, my first thing that I played on my 4K monitor when I got sent one by BenQ, which is a legendary move by that company. They just sent a lovely 4K monitor that wasn't even out yet at the time, I don't think. It was a 32-inch 4K desktop monitor. And I plugged it in. The first thing I did was fire up Red Dead Redemption 2 because I have a fuck-off powerful PC. And now I have this immense-looking monitor. So I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go, see what happened. And it was such a nice experience. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is what luxury feels like. This is the next generation, man.
If BenQ could send me two 25, 27-inch desktop monitors, that'd be great, because I need 2 more of those 4K ones for when I get my actual PC, which I need to talk to you about because I need to build my PC soon. So and you're the expert. You're the expert. I don't need one as fuck off powerful as yours. I'm not going to be playing games on it. I just need a really one that can handle 4K obviously, but also one that can handle running lots of programs for streaming, editing, Photoshop, the sound editing like Ableton. That's about it. I'm not really playing a lot of games on it. Maybe like Age of Empires 3. So nothing. Okay,
so we're looking at an AMD high RAM sort of. We're looking at AMD processor and AMD graphics card probably, and a bit of RAM. Okay, you know what? I'll talk you through it when we're not recording.
What is the most expensive part when you're building a PC?
The graphics card, typically,
which is
what you use to play games.
Yes. So will it be cheaper if I'm not getting a top of the range graphics card?
Yeah, it usually works out that way. See, mid range is usually quite a lot cheaper than top range, so you don't have to go too low.
See, I'll go mid-range.
Graphics card. Mid-range, you can get at this point you can get very nice budget graphics cards that will do anything that you want them to, and anything above that at this point is just built for all the little minor details like ray tracing and
don't need any of that.
Super ultra settings. Basically,
any of those things.
If you don't need those things,
budget.
When it comes to things like the processor and the RAM, for which is simpler than it sounds, I promise. You probably know about those. The higher those power are, the better your editing is probably going to be, because they're more prioritized than, say, a graphics card. I'd still recommend having a graphics card because rendering on a graphics card is quicker. I've found from experience. Anyway, I've set it to that in mine, and it's rapid.
I'm gonna go with budget graphics card.
But budget graphics.
Yeah, definitely
budget graphics card. We can find a good budget graphics card, so it's no worries. They're not. Though high end graphics cards can be stupidly expensive, mid range graphics cards tend to be acceptable price wise, and you don't want to go too far below that because that's just outdated.
Yes.
There's no such thing as low end. There's just old. You get your mid range and your high end, and anything that's less powerful. The mid range is just old, and the graphics drivers will be flawed at this point and outdated.
We'll go with mid range, and some good RAM. Like it's a machine I need to just run programs, edit, on 2 desktop screens, and I can stream powerfully and actually stream in 1080p. Unlike I can right now on this small, tiny little MacBook Pro that I use for everything. Well,
when it comes to running 2 screens, you'll want a mid-range graphics card at least then, because then you can have both plugged into that and they'll both look glorious. When it comes to the RAM wise on a machine like editing, streaming, things like that, 16 gigabytes would do you, but I'd recommend 32 for the sake of never having to compromise, if you will. And for the processors, I'd be looking at an AMD processor. I'm not too well versed on AMD myself, but I'll look into it for you when it comes to looking for parts and things like that. Obviously, if you can get it contract built by somebody else, like custom, I'd probably recommend doing that because it's just easier. I got mine built by Shield Blast, so I got mine built by Shield Blast because I couldn't be asked building it myself. I was like, okay, I could get the parts, build it myself. Might be a little bit cheaper that way, but also I'd lose my sanity. Is it worth my soul? It's not worth.
I don't trust myself with that. I don't even know what I'm doing. I just need you to give me the specs to tell another person this is what I want for it. Like, I need
on the websites you tend to be able to select the parts based on their range, and it will tell you what what's compatible with what, and it's a fucking minefield. But it won't let you build a PC that's not compatible with its own components. So that's the benefit of getting it custom built by a professional, is you don't have to worry about compatibility. It will make sure everything's good. It looks a lot more daunting than it actually is when you start to realize what all the parts do. PCs aren't actually that complex when it comes to building them, at least in my experience, because I know some fucking baboons who can build PCs. Not literal baboons, but you know.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Right.
You know.
Well, I mean, I'm excited to get a proper PC and have a beautiful setup. I realized I just need a new desk. Once I got this 4K monitor, I was like, so that's 32 inches, it's taking up half my desk, and I want 2 more 25-inch monitors. I'm gonna need a bigger desk. So I've found a desk I want. But everyone's been buying desks at the moment, so everywhere's sold out of desks because everyone's building fucking home offices. So I'm gonna wait
Christ.
until the desk I want. It's a 2 meter long desk because I need a massive ass desk, which I have room for because I have like my Xbox sitting on like a little bedside drawer thing. So I'm gonna get rid of the bedside drawer, and then the desk will extend there, and then a little bit further that way. So I'll have plenty of room, and then some for all my screens on it. And I'll have a beautiful setup now that I've got, once the new consoles are out, a new PC, I've got a new microphone, a new, TV and everything. It'll just completely new setup, raring to go, joining the PC world to stream at a high level and really just get into making the best videos I can make. And my books have been arriving for this Assassin's Creed Valhalla real life history series that I've been working on. So I've started reading that. I'm reading, it's over there, it's called the Poetic Edda, which is pretty much a poem book of Norse poems. It's like a Norse Bible in a way. Written about 1,000 years ago, translated. I've got The Viking Wars by Max Adams. And then what arrived yesterday was the Sagas of Icelanders, which is about an 800-page beautiful book. And these are all books that were recommended to me by Darby McDevitt, the narrative director of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. He gave me a reading list. So these are the 3 books that have arrived so far. Yes. So
did he go, Darby, I'm making a video, help me out? And he went, I got you. And then
that's exactly what I just said.
That is amazing.
I just said, hey, look, this is what I'm working on. I do these real life history videos. I want to do some on Valhalla. Do you have what books were you reading when you were researching for Valhalla and writing the script? Have any recommendations? And he gave me all the primary sources, like the Sagas of Icelanders is a big one. There's about 5 others that are yet to arrive, 5 other books that are yet to arrive.
Yeah.
And then a more modern book like the Viking Wars is a bit more modern, which is interesting. War and Peace in King Alfred's Britain. So I'm excited to get into that one. But the Poetic Edda is interesting because I'm a big fan of Vikings and Norse, but I'm no expert. I'm going to be a fucking expert after this. Reading Viking poetry and reading these poems is such a mindfuck because there's so many crazy names, and they're not really in order, and the editor has had to write briefings on each poem before it, explaining the context of it all, because it's like some are changing perspectives midway through the poem. Like lots of them are Odin trying to find wisdom about Ragnarok and what his fate's going to be, and it'll go from like a third person perspective about Odin to then it being from Odin's perspective. Is very, very strange, but it's very interesting as well. I'm already learning a lot about culture, and you can see Viking culture throughout the poems, because some of them are it's like Bible stories. There's like a Genesis story, there's poems about how you should behave as a man and things like that, and it's very interesting. So I'm looking forward to using these as sources for my real life history videos that I'm going to do for Valhalla.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I also heard you recently watched The Last Kingdom as well, didn't you?
I did. And that's kind of given me a bit of background to, even though obviously it's fictional, it's just giving me a good background.
It's a bit it's well earthed, but it is still fiction. Yeah, no, but it is based roughly around a lot of events that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is sort of based on as well, isn't it? Yeah. It's the same point in history. It's that same era, if you will, that same age, the late 9th century ish, right? Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I watched that. I've watched 3 sequences. Fucking, what the hell is my brain saying?
Your head's too deep in Assassin's Creed.
Get out of the Assassin's Creed shit show now. No, series. I watched 3 series like a year ago, and then I watched the 4th series recently, and it's just a fun watch. To be fair, it's about as far as my knowledge on Vikings goes, but it is a fun watch. It makes me a little bit excited, if you will, a little bit, just a tidge.
The 4th season I just finished last week, and it's tremendous.
I like the 4th
season. The show definitely got better as it went on. But season 3 is probably my favorite.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree.
And I love King Alfred. I fucking love King Alfred in that show. Like, as much as he's sort of. Well, this is what I want to talk to you about, because we're getting into some Valhalla.
It's a similar take on Alfred, to be fair.
It sounds like it, right? Because from the first cinematic trailer that we got for Valhalla, King Alfred was what looked like the antagonist of the... Well, he was the antagonist of the trailer.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, okay, King Alfred's going to be the bad guy. I guess it makes sense if we're going from a Viking perspective. But if you look at the real history to it, or if you're watching The Last Kingdom, King Alfred's not black and white at all. He's a very grey character.
That's the thing about Valhalla as well. He's not necessarily the main antagonist. Like, sure, he might be an antagonist to begin with, but there's a bit more nuance to him. And what we know is, I don't think he's going to be the main antagonist by the end. That's something that I think we've heard. But there's a lot of nuance to him, so it's not black and white. He's bad, you're good. He's just trying to do what's best for whatever, isn't he? Or whatever he does. But it's similar take on the character, I presume, as what The Last Kingdom's done, which is he's quite keen on documenting things, if you will. That is something that he likes to do. He's quite keen on history. He's quite keen on uniting, England as well, though I don't know where the history ends and The Last Kingdom begins, if you will. But that is something that I've noticed is quite key to his character, and I wonder how much of that will be similar in Valhalla, where they have this grey character, if you will, where he's maybe not your pal to begin with, but later on in the game turns out to be something of an ally, someone that at times maybe he has to make a decision that doesn't necessarily go in your favour or something, but at other times he understands your point and he's not necessarily against you. And I wonder if that take on maybe like a secondary antagonist, if you will, as opposed to a main antagonist, is what they're going to be doing with it. Because obviously he's going to be a huge part of the game. Like, historically, it was a huge part of the time, and obviously he's the only king in English history to be referred to as the Great, I do believe.
He's what he did and what his descendants ended up doing is pretty incredible. England wouldn't exist without King Alfred.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's for sure. And even just from he's the inception. He was the first. He was the king that drove that desire and want to make a united England, and was his. I guess kind of spoilers. Well, I don't know where spoilers begin, right? Like, where does a fictional video game and real history
where
kind of connect?
Where did the fiction begin?
But his daughter was in control of Mercia, and his son was in control of Wessex, and they took East Anglia. So his 2 children took control of 3 of the kingdoms, and then it was just Northumbria, in which his grandson united and was the first true king of England. So it's pretty incredible what his descendants went on to do that he began. It's a piece of work that one generation couldn't achieve, but wouldn't have happened without him. At least that's what we read in history. How much of that is true? And I'm, again, no expert yet. I will be. I guarantee you that. I'm going to be a fucking expert on this real history, and these videos are going to be the best videos I've ever made when I'm done. But I've got so much reading to do until then. There's insane amounts of reading.
How much reading did you do for the Crusades and the real life assassins?
A lot. I didn't go and spend hundreds of dollars on books like I did this time.
Well, that is commitment.
I just read lots and lots and lots of articles and things of that nature, and this is another level where I've spent hundreds of dollars on books.
I studied the Crusades at A level, and I like to think that I know a hefty bit. You know, I like to think that I know a few things.
Yeah.
But it's quite fucking obvious that you knew more than me. Pretty quick, because I still thought that the Hashashin, you know, smoked bud and killed people.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, there's conflicted sources about that, but there's no necessary evidence. Is what
exactly.
That did that. And that is fascinating. That's something that even at A level, that your sources that you're provided would give information saying that sources suggest that they might have been fucking smackheads, and I was like, oh, fucking beautiful. But no, it's just fascinating how a few articles and you can be more educated than a man who's got an A level in history.
Well, I mean, I studied history.
It just goes to show that you did bits, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know how to research. I spent all my high school years doing not just like I did modern history and religious studies, like an elective of religious studies, because I was so interested. And I've read the Quran, I've read the Bible multiple times, the Torah, and studying to Buddhism. I'm excited in a lot of ways. One, to learn about history of Vikings, but I've never delved into the religion of the Vikings either. So it's two loves of mine. I love religious studies and history. So combining those two things, they're one and the same in a lot of ways. But you know, the study of religion more than anything, I sucked at writing essays and sucked at English. Until I did religious studies, because those classes were to help me learn how to research and write really well. And I went from like a C student to an A student by my final year of high school in English, thanks to doing history and religious studies as
History's
courses.
Great for essay writing.
100%. 100%.
God, history is such an essay heavy topic.
And that's why it's, I think, doing these videos and going into that Crusades video and learning about the assassins, like, yeah, I'm no expert on those topics necessarily, but I know how to research.
You are now,
and I know how. Yeah, sure. Or at least on the Hashashins, and I know how to research, and I know how to look for my primary sources, and I know how to try to look at bias, and I guess check multiple perspectives and not be set in stone and be like, I've read this, that's fucking fact.
Is something
that's
that
the only perspective.
That's something that history and religious studies can give you when it comes to researching anything, is the ability to be. It's a word that you can't define without using the word in definition, and it's such an odd word but we use it so often. It's the word thorough. Like, you can't define the word thorough without using the word thorough in the definition, and it is such an odd word, but that is what studying history and religious studies, for example, would make you do. It teaches you to be thorough. It teaches you to look at things from every single perspective, and I can't be thorough. Fucking hell, it actually is a word that you can't define in any other way but itself.
Yeah,
it just is, and that is what it is. Such an odd word, but that is what history.
I was so nervous doing that video. I've never been so nervous to release a video because I didn't want to fucking get anything wrong.
Yeah, I didn't. You.
You don't want to make those big mistakes, and of course, people are calling you out on facts and stuff. And I had like debates. I'm explaining to people, I'm like, no, like, this is how many sources. Like, I couldn't find a source that's saying what you're saying. People are like, nah, I know that this is a fact. I speak that language. I'm like, yeah, but it's a dead language I'm talking about. You speak the modern version. Nah, doesn't mean that. Like, I had a full argument. I'm like, well, I've literally gone through books and academic journals, peer-reviewed journals, and they saying this. And he's like, nah. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. You take it up with them, don't take it up with me. I did my research, and I tried to be as thorough as I can. If I'm not right, then I'm not right. But I'm not the one to argue with about it. Go talk to the peer-reviewed journals and professors that did the research, because I'm just reading off them and trying to be as thorough as possible. I'm not the expert. I'm just the communicator of other people's research in a concise video form to talk about a video game. And that's what this is going to be. So I'm just going to try to have some fun. I love learning history, so I'm taking this as an excuse to just read and learn for fun, and then try to create a concise, nice, fun series for everyone to watch.
It's meant to be entertaining, and I love history. Like that, it's like a passion of mine, is learning about things that happen in history. Same. I've always liked. There's two things that I love: a good mystery and something of historical intrigue. Mix the two together, and I'm in my element.
Well, that's Assassin's Creed, at least the early days.
Yeah, well, not anymore.
Yeah,
no. But when it comes, I like the real stuff. You know, like the real some things that have fascinated me, and you're about to fucking sigh massively, is I like looking into unsolved serial killings. Like, I'm fascinated by all those kinds of things. As morbid as they may get, I think, that is
No,
interesting.
are you joking? Dude, I fucking obsessed. Well, I say love. I'm obsessed with serial killer stuff.
Oh yeah,
obsessed.
No, it is
like
great
my brother, you're one and the same with me. You love your history, you love your serial killers. My brother gets creeped out when he's looking at like murders and stuff. He'll go like, Tyler, he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, well, it's probably like, I feel like I'm a fucking CIA agent or something. Like I'm a total detective, because I'm like, well, based on this, I'd imagine the killer probably has a background of this and went through this sort of trauma. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I've watched way too many documentaries.
Yeah, see,
watch
any
murder mystery movie, and I'll be like, that's what's happened, and we'll get.
Yeah, no, in a murder mystery movie, I can tell you the killer is in the opening 15 minutes. No, see, I could probably look at the Jack the Ripper case and give you a fucking name pretty fucking quickly. I can do it on the spot if you want.
No, is it Jack the Lad? Is that
no, obviously Jack the Lad. No, there are actual
we already know who it is.
Referring to. The funny part is there are actual sources referring to Jack the Ripper as Jack the Lad, and nothing hurts my brain more than reading that.
That's so insane.
No, but thing is though, they have in theory come close to naming a suspect in the past, though but due to the DNA that they used from this, it's all a bunch of science waffle. And basically, they came up with the name of a Polish barber named Aaron Kosminski, and I was like, "Oh, that's fascinating. I wonder what evidence they have on him." And apparently, they managed to find a sample of his like say semen on a piece of clothing that was left at the scene of one of the killings. And I think, well, that's 100 years old, so that is, but then some. So that is tainted evidence, because they didn't even know what DNA was back then, really, did they?
Not at all. No, not at all.
So they didn't.
DNA's very new.
So he could have come across that afterwards and fucking spunked on it.
You go to the 60s, they're like, what the fuck's DNA? What are you talking about? They have no fucking idea.
But the thing is, when I look at all the other different suspects that the police had for, who was Leather Apron, as he was referred to at the time, or Jack the Ripper, and the only name that ever keeps coming up as you can't cancel him out is Aaron Kosminski. There are a few people who died in the middle of the killings, some who were arrested in the middle of the killings, and there are a few who couldn't have done it for other reasons. But one that keeps propping up is this Polish barber, and I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. See, I'm like, that's juicy. I'm almost glad that they never resolved it fully. Like, never put that name and said that is canon, if you will. That is canonical. That's what they use with. They use that with serial killers sometimes. Like the 5 known victims of Jack the Ripper are known as the canonical 5. Things like that. So I look at it and go, I'm glad that they didn't put the name to the face and leave it at that. Because we can have this like, ooh, what if, and that's when Ubisoft comes along and goes, I have massive money dick, and things happen.
I have massive money dick.
It's what they do. It is what they do.
What? Okay. I'm gonna, every time they come up with a game, announce a game, we're like, well, we have massive money dick, so this is what we're gonna do now.
I easily do. How many times do you reckon that'll appear in your patron list?
Oh,
God. Like massive money
dick.
AKA
massive money dick. Yeah, oh, God.
I think I've created the next one. Good luck explaining that one to James.
Yeah, okay.
So James will be like, so Tyler, what the fuck is the massive money dick? And
God damn it.
He'll be like, well, let me tell you a story.
Well, I've got a question to go back to this real history thing. Question for you. So I was watching one of your Valhalla videos just to get, like, because I don't know anything and I don't know where to find news, so I go to your channel. One of the things that James and I talked about, and we talked about in the last podcast, but also you mentioned in your video, is the Valhalla being the transition from Hidden Ones to Assassins, Order of the Ancients to Templars. Now, you talk about, yourself, the Crusades. Is there any way in your mind that you can somehow connect? Because in terms of real history, what I appreciate about what they're doing with Assassin's Creed is not calling them Assassins and Templars until the real
Crusades.
Assassins and real Templars existed.
See, the reason why
they
can't... The reason why they can't call the assassins before the Crusades is because before the Crusades, the word assassin didn't exist.
Correct.
So they can't really put it in there because the word at this point in time wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't. Yeah. Everyone was speaking different languages back in the day.
And didn't really even exist during the Crusades. It kind of developed afterwards.
Exactly. And it was all based on that concept of the Hashashinith, I do believe. Yes. Obviously, it came from different places as well, but the word assassin came from an easier way to say
it came from the Europeans talking about the Hashashins.
And that yeah, exactly. So that is how the word assassin came to exist. So before then, they can't use the word. They've used the word assassinations in Origins once, and it hurt my brain because I was like, that word didn't even exist back then. But it makes sense for modernising the concept.
Right. Yeah,
it makes sense. It makes sense of the modernising of the concept, but it's
English.
A keyword. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it makes some sense, but I do think of it and I go, okay, fair enough. But so they could do it in theory because of how the universe is established based on the different languages and things as you've mentioned. But I don't know what's to expect as far as what will happen with that. Like you could sure. I don't think I'd be too pissed off if they did it and it made sense in the story that they were telling. But at the same time, I'd like to have some form of historical logic to it as well.
I agree. I'm totally with you. Do you think how long do you think this game's gonna span? Is my question here, right? Because 870 is the year they're saying the game starts.
That's now, when it starts.
Is Eivor a child?
I reckon it'll start before then, but the main bulk.
Yeah, the main bulk.
Be a main bulk, so it'll start probably 865.
Well, Alfred's not king till the late 880s.
No, yeah. Well, what I'm thinking is it'll start. Well, okay, maybe it'll start with Eivor 870. Then, like you said, that's when it starts. Yeah. Okay, I must have read this wrong. So if Alfred's not king till the late 880s, then let's assume that is the middle part of the game. So you've got youngish Eivor at the start, not too young.
Probably, hang on. I'm totally off. I thought he was. No, he died in the late 880s. Hang on. No, let me check. Alfred the Great was king. 871. I'm totally right. Sorry, he died in the late 880s.
Okay, so the game does. So let's assume anyway that 871 is sort of the early to middle part of the game then, based on that logic. So it will probably start maybe half a decade before 870 with Eivor sort of and a bit of setup, if you will, in good old Norway, and then we get the main bulk of the game.
Yeah. Well, he was king for a fucking long time. He was king. Oh, this is why I got it wrong. I remember because I was reading. I'm like, I swear to God. So he was king of Wessex from 871 to 886, but he then was in 886 he became king of the Anglo-Saxons from 886 to 899. Because I'm like, I swear he died in 899, which he did.
There you go.
So he was king of the Saxons from 886 to 899. That's what I thought his reign was, but I misjudged. He was also like he was called King of Wessex and then King of Saxon. So they call it two completely different reigns, even though technically he was one reign as king from 871 to 899, which is almost 30 years as king, which in those days was an enormous reign, and he achieved an enormous amount during that reign.
Yeah, huge amounts. So what we're looking at then, I think, is the span of maybe. They could go so far as to give us a full 30-year story. But I think what they'll do is it will probably end around 890 as opposed to like 899. Like, Alfred might be a part of the story, but I don't know how key he's going to be.
So you think he'd still be king by the end of the game?
I don't know how key he's going to be. Maybe. See, the logic here is, right, if it ended, say, with Alfred's death, then you'd have a full, like, The Last Kingdom on your hands, where Season 4 is basically, okay, what's next? So if you see it like that, then maybe we could get the full 30 years in there, the full shebang of that. But also, logically, are we going to get 30 years of big burly Viking man?
It's tough, eh?
It is probably a lot to cram into a game.
Probably not. You're right. You're probably right.
It is a lot. See, they did manage it once with Assassin's Creed, but that was 3 games. Right.
Yes.
and it was 50 odd years with little bits.
Yeah, 65 years if you really want to get into
60. Yeah, 65.
Ezio's entire life from birth to death.
Yeah, 60. Yeah, they told that story. Obviously, they didn't. They cut out bits that weren't relevant, like between Revelations and Embers, and is that right? Embers. Yeah, that's right. Shit. Yeah, and obviously Ezio's birth to his being 17 and doing bits. You know. Those are bits that we don't necessarily need to see. They could do it like that, where time passes, but also that you have to consider the limitations of the health of, say, some of these characters. Like, is that plausible? Maybe not. I mean, I'm curious as to what they do with it as far as the time period is concerned. But I reckon there'll be a huge focus on Alfred the Great as a character more so than a villain. Especially, it'll start off as seemingly as an antagonist, and then he'll develop more into a character that you eventually come. I think you'll eventually come to not be enemies, if you will, and then it'll develop beyond that into something beyond, if you get me. Like it'll develop into more of an alliance, if you will. Maybe a trying alliance. Like maybe not the nicest of friendships or whatever. You're not exactly getting matching tattoos, but at least it's a development of character. I reckon is what they're going to focus on. And
it's hard for me to imagine how that would work if you are truly a Viking and your people are all Vikings.
You see, that's
there were lots of Danes that lived in Alfred's Wessex, but they became Christian, right? So they were Christian Danes.
You see, that's the thing about what we know about the settlement and about Eivor and his people is they're not like, I don't know, they're not overly violent, if you will. They are the best way to describe what they are is they would rather make peace, if you can imagine. Like their first choice would be to coexist with the Saxons. Sorry, my words are getting confused there. So I think Ubisoft will do what they always do, which is take a little bit of creative freedom, and they'll bridge it that way. Now, I don't know how it's going to work. I'm not too well versed in the setting. Like I said, most of my knowledge comes from watching The Last Kingdom, and I haven't really got into Vikings. I don't know too much about that show. But
question for you: where do you think the settlement's going to be based? I'd argue it's either going to be Northumbria or East Anglia, right? You can't have it in Mercia or Wessex.
I reckon it'll be. Oh god, that's a good point. Northumbria would be my best guess.
Yeah.
Based on where Norway is, they'll settle pretty quickly after they touch land, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So
it's there or East Anglia for sure.
It'll be Northumbria, I think. Maybe
there's not a lot of snow. The reason I think there's not a lot of snow or anything in any of the pictures, it seems like quite a nice looking place, the settlement. Which I mean, there's parts of Northumbria that are nice and stuff, but I'd say East Anglias are more likely.
Well, if we look at where the cities are, so for example, you've got London and you've got Winchester, and those are in the south, and then you've got Jorvik, which is York, which is in the northeast, sort of Yorkshire, sort of modern day Yorkshire area, which would have been Northumbria at the time. It makes me think that they're gonna want to introduce you to one of these settlements before the other two. Like they'll want you to be close to a bigger settlement as well, so it'll be near one of those. And the only one of those that's actually anywhere near a coast that sort of faces the direction of Norway is probably York. It's still not the closest ever, but it's not the closest to the coast ever. It's pretty inland, but I think that's more likely where we're going to be, sort of Northumbria region. But I don't know. See, it's not necessarily the snowiest area either.
True.
I guess it depends on where you go. It doesn't really snow around this time of year anyway. I mean, imagine if I'm sweltering and sweating right now. I go outside and it's fucking snowing.
Yeah,
like,
true.
Jesus.
True.
No, but I think that's most likely what's going to happen. But then again, it could be somewhere in East Anglia, because that sort of like protrudes from the east of the landmass that is, the major island, basically, of the British Isles. I forgot what they fucking call it. Just island. I don't know. Big place.
They talked about regions that aren't announced that are going to be in this game. Do you just
Wales, Scotland,
Ireland?
Wales and Scotland. Ireland, I wouldn't say. Wales and Scotland, though, those I'd probably put in there.
They sort of have to be in there in some ways when you.
I mean, they're quite key as well, because there's a lot of overlap.
If you're talking map size, so let's talk about map size. They said this is bigger map than Odyssey, which is what the fuck ever. But are we talking because half of it's water anyway? Because if you're talking like, let's say you've got a big portion of the map here's England, and then there's this big massive water gap, and then there's Norway. Like, and it's all in one map, as it would be. It would only be in one map. They wouldn't have loading screens between the two. It's just mostly water anyway.
I don't know. So, it could be.
That's what
Wales
they mean by it's
Scotland.
Technically the biggest map, but land mass that you're on, it's not the biggest. So
it's not the biggest, no, because it's quite a small space, really. It's still big because it's a full country. In fact, if you put in Wales and Scotland in there, at the time it was 3. And if you want to be technical based on how divided it was in these different kingdoms, it was a couple more than that. It was 6 kingdoms, isn't it? Because Wales and Scotland at this time were nothing to do with England, and England was divided into 4 major sections, if you will. Yeah. And so you've got Wales, you've got Scotland. Those are possible locations that we could see. If you see any promotional content with men in kilts, then you know that, I don't know when kilts were popular, probably not at this time. But if you see that, then you know what's up. If you see any lovely hills with sheep in abundance, then you know Wales is present. And I don't know how to describe Scotland beyond the haggis, and honestly, that is a bit of a shame. But no, I've probably upset a lot of people in the last 5 minutes of me talking. So, yeah, then there's the concept of having a bit of Norway that you can probably revisit if you wanted to as well. And I wonder if there'll be locations off the coast of England as well, not in Norway. Like, for example, in the southeast of England. The closest point, I do believe, France is only like 20 miles away.
And which is Francia at the time? Is that what it was called? Francia?
It fucking fuck knows, man. Yeah, probably. I mean,
not
it wasn't
me yet. Yeah, it's I'm curious. I'm certainly curious.
Probably was Normandy at the time, actually. Probably the France where you can. That part of France was probably Normandy at the time. Just Normandy.
Yeah, right.
And that's sort of like a place. I don't know. William the Conqueror. That whatever. It was Normandy then.
Well, that's quite a while after.
Not too far. Not too long after. A couple 100 years, but
long enough that it won't be in the game.
My logic is the location is still there.
Yeah, true. No,
there are some lovely spots in Normandy that aren't too far away from being logically part of it, where you could go there not necessarily to visit on a whim, but maybe it's like one side quest, if you will, like one quest that takes you away from it in like a set piece. Like, have you heard of Mont Saint Michel, which is
of course, it's one of the maps in the Brotherhood multiplayer and the Revelations multiplayer.
It's the tidal island, isn't it? Tidal island.
It's also in Kingdom Hearts: Stream of Distance, Three Musketeer world. Mont Saint Michel's in the Three Musketeers world when you're with Mickey and Donald.
I've been there before. It's fucking great.
Have you actually been to Mont Saint Michel?
I've actually been to Mont Saint Michel. Yeah,
it's certainly a beautiful, one of my favorite Assassin's Creed multiplayer maps. So
I've actually been to the actual Mont Saint Michel. It looks a lot nicer.
Was
in real
it built
life.
then?
Mont Saint Michel. I don't know when it was built. It probably wasn't built by this point, but I want to Google that actually. I'll do that for you. I think it might have been. Let me get a bloody history thing up. It was okay. When was it built? Let me know when it was built. It might not have been how it was now, but I think it was 8th century. It was when it was first in establishment, so part of it existed. God knows. Maybe we're just being a bit too fast and loose with history at the moment.
We're being fast and loose right now. We're being fast and loose. That's what this podcast is becoming right now.
Fast and loose, me.
Fast and loose. It's really not giving much. I can't find a date.
But settlement existed there at least from the 8th
What a
century.
wild place! Just looking at these pictures of it, like what a wild place to have a castle.
It's a tidal island, so when the tide comes in, it used to anyway, be completely just an island there. Now not so much. Like obviously, every now and then
it looks
tide
like
will come
a
in
massive like Disney fairy tale castle built in the middle of like a mud water. Like a marshland. It's so odd. It's so jarring to look at a picture.
It's off the coast. It's off the coast, and it's fucking glorious though. It truly does at times get to a point where it is just cut off from the land because it is. Like the tide comes in sometimes quite high, and it'll take the road off. Like it'll cover the road, and so when it comes to visiting the place, you have to time it. But it's not too bad because the tide doesn't tend to come in that high anymore.
It reminds me of looking at pictures like in real life. It looks like Minas Tirith from Return of the King from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. Oh, shit. No, that's in my head.
Yeah, you can't unsee it now, can you? You're like, that's Minas Tirith. Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's what that is.
Maybe there's an inspiration there, but Mont Saint Michel looks like it's ripped straight out of fantasy.
That'd be sick if it was built then, or if any part of it was built then. It'd be cool.
I think, like I said, there was a settlement established by 8th century, and Valhalla's 9th century. So there could be something set piece little mission.
Do you think that?
No.
No. Okay. I
don't.
Okay. No, you don't. Okay.
I don't think that.
I guess from what going back to what I was asking, but earlier about the Crusades and the names being changed. Do you think there's any way they'll? I mean, it sounds like they're trying to link. To me, this will be the game they're going to link to AC1. If they want a culmination. If they're transitioning from Hidden Ones to Assassins or to Ancients to Templars, how are they going to do that without skipping hundreds of years and going beyond just Eivor? And going to the Middle East.
They have hinted at some possible. I don't know. They have hinted at. I do believe they've hinted at some possible. You might not necessarily always be in this, this area. Like, sure, this is the world map, but some parts might take place elsewhere, if you will. And
somewhere Black Flag, you have those weird we get Northern Africa and shit.
Exactly, things like that. I don't know where you'd want to go as a Viking. I would say Middle East. They haven't invented sun cream yet, so I'm thinking logically, as a Viking, you're not gonna want to go there.
Well, the thing is, Vikings went to the Middle East. Some Vikings did go to the Middle East.
There you go.
Now that I think of it, actually, this is totally fucking clicking in my head. Some Vikings traveled around to like the Malta, Italy, Middle East coast area. Yeah,
they even found themselves in North America.
There was some Vikings that went to like desert lands and shit, like that sailed around, like sailor Vikings.
They're well traveled. They were a well traveled people. So anything is possible. But some of them,
actually, you know what? Fuck,
it's a very malleable thing.
Something.
Yeah, but you see then you have to remember that Ubisoft has a habit of this, and it's something that I've noticed a lot. Is they'll say there are more settings to come, but we're not ready to talk about that. There are more places you can visit, but we're not ready to talk about them yet. Or there are more characters you can play as, but we're not ready to talk about them yet. Yeah. And there's nobody, there's nothing.
True. True.
Or
nothing
before.
That worth it to get excited about, right?
Yeah, no, but I feel like, come on, when it comes to a story that they want to tell, and Darby McDevitt has stated it's it's like a culmination of everything so far, is that I do believe something along those lines. Yeah. Not necessarily an end point, but a climax of what's come before, if you will. Yeah. And I think to myself, if Darby McDevitt is saying that, then it's Darby McDevitt, man.
Yeah.
So
he knows how to deliver an ending.
He knows how to deliver, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Is a clever guy, and when he says that, it makes me think that there could be something special coming from it. But it's one of those things we'll have to wait and see, because until we actually get the game and we play it through completely, we won't know what any of that means, and Darby won't tell us because that is Darby's style. He'd rather we played the games than read everything about them, which is an interesting point, considering there's a lot of information circulating about a game that we haven't seen any gameplay for. Like, sure, we got that trailer and that was fine, 60 seconds, not the best trailer in the world, not the worst, whatever. But what I find really interesting is how much information is actually circulating about a game that we haven't seen any demo for, like any gameplay, like in the sense that we've seen the engine. We know it's probably the same Origins Odyssey engine for the most part, and I do believe that's been confirmed, and it makes the most sense. The game's only been in development since the end of Origins development, I do believe, as far as full development is concerned.
Yeah,
anyway.
For sure. I'm sure Darby was researching and writing stuff. Because he wasn't full on Origins.
It was probably the moment he was done with Origins, I reckon he moved straight onto Valhalla or something.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he was doing his research, going, this is what's next, way before. But what I'm thinking is, my point's just literally slipped out my ear. Then, what I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think now. I can't even think anymore. Is that when it comes to the information that we've got, there's so much of it. I think there's a lot of that. And it's one thing reading about the game and getting excited for what you're reading, because they can make anything sound good. They literally referred to flighting as Viking rap battles, and it was fucking amazing. It's not too far off anyway, but it's a rhythmic roasting match basically, which is very odd, but also very accurate, I guess. But my point is, there's lots of information. There's not much footage of the actual game. 60 seconds is what's circulating at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
And I worry that we'll learn too much about the game before the game's out, based on what we already know and what we've already seen, like as a proportion.
Yeah.
So when I think, well, we get gameplay and a shit ton of information, because that, like, usually Ubisoft wait until they show off the game properly to yield endless information, because when they announce their games, they tend to release gameplay demos pretty quickly. That's at least the experience from the past. But this time they've been a bit more conservative with the gameplay footage that they've shown. And as much as I appreciate that, I mean, I don't care. We'll see gameplay eventually, sure. I do worry that we'll find out too much information about the game itself, trying to sell it, if you get me.
Oh my god. So, Ethan, my housemate Jared just made homemade hazelnut chocolate cookies. And what's the ice cream? Coffee. Intense coffee ice cream. He just handed me a bowl full. I'll show that on the screen. Oh my god. Oh my god, they smell so fucking...
The cookies are gooey as well, like in the center.
Holy fuck, dude.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Dude, I'm so excited. Yeah. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life.
Tell Jared I said he was a fucking legend.
Ethan says you're a legend. Dude, that's amazing.
Magnificent.
You got a few more? Fuck!
Not cooked, but...
Dude.
Yeah.
You're fucking with me right now.
Yeah. Anyway, enjoy.
Thank you. Well, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see more of Jared, you'll see him on Clubhouse and Patreon next week. So patreon.com/ as always, you want to come down on screen dates, you'll be able to see yourself there. There he is. This beautiful biracial angel here. So you can see him. Patreon.com/ as always. $1 a month. We'll get drunk next week and
get your questions in on the Patreon.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for this, man. Holy shit. Oh god, I'm gonna need to ask you a lengthy question, Ethan, so you can talk and I can listen and eat this fucking shit.
Okay, I thought you had a lengthy question then. For me to talk about.
I always have lengthy questions for you, and thankfully you're the only person that can probably talk as much as I can talk, so it's good. Like I could talk underwater, and I think so could you. It's brilliant.
I don't always choose to, but I can.
Yeah.
I can also listen, but I like to talk.
Yeah.
I like to hear my voice. I like the sound of my own voice.
I like the sound of your own voice and my own voice. It's beautiful.
Likewise, Tom. I like your voice too. It's so fucking daft. Okay.
Oh god. I've got a massive list here of these Valhalla bits of information that have popped up. One of the big ones was that I'm excited about, and it's something that pre-Origins we talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Which was bringing back like assassin tombs and tomb exploration, and Origins did that so differently, where it was more natural, like you'd walk into it. It wasn't like this force set piece, which I love about the old Assassin's Creed games, but it still did it its own way, where you had to think. There's some puzzle bits to it, a lot more mystery, and then Odyssey's just like, we don't know what that is. But they're talking about that a lot more in Valhalla. Where's your head at with that?
Well, I've heard that there's going to be some navigational puzzles as well. Now, when I hear navigational puzzles, I think more on the lines of where it's like sort of Origins and like sort of the old set pieces. That's what I think about, where you do these puzzles in these tombs that you're exploring. But sometimes they require you to do a bit of parkour. Maybe you have to push some things about. Maybe you have to then push some things about, then climb them. Or maybe you have to put weights on things and things like that. And I think navigational puzzles are my favourite kind of puzzles, because I don't have to take myself away from what I'm exploring to do the puzzle. And I like those a lot. Now, obviously, Odyssey corrupted them to fuck by you have to move a million of these and destroy a few of these pots and things like this. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? The Legend of Zelda? No. So I am kind of wary of what navigational puzzles does mean, because it's been corrupted already by the franchise. But also, I also think of all the fun times I've had in Origins, in 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations with navigational set pieces and puzzles of the sort, and I wonder what will be what. So obviously it won't necessarily be set pieces, because we know the gameplay engine that we're likely to see and play is not necessarily designed at this point for in-depth set pieces, in the sense that we used to get with Assassin's Creed. And I think it's fair to say that with Assassin's Creed 2 through Revelations, that the gameplay back then was more designed with that in mind as a key point. Whereas now it's more, because it's an RPG, they have to be more open with it. So they'll be more open with it, and it'll be more in the sense of navigational puzzles and things that we got for Origins. So when it comes to exploring tombs and things, I reckon we'll have a lot of... You're enjoying those cookies, aren't you?
Oh, dude, this is the best thing I've ever fucking eaten in my life, dude. To be honest with you, trying to keep a straight face on camera while eating this is fucking impossible. This is the best thing that's ever hit my mouth. This is the thickest cookie I've ever had. It's like hard on the outside and soft in the middle. It's got whole hazelnuts and chocolate in it, and coffee ice cream. This is fucking bullshit. I'm on a diet right now. Fuck that shit. I'm going hard on this. I've lost 7 kilos in the last 7 weeks. I'm hard on diet. I'm working out fucking 8 times a week. This is the biggest cheat I've done. This is amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm also enjoying you talking about, you know, the way the tombs are gonna work and operate in Valhalla. Especially since we're going to have ancient Roman ruins to go through at this time.
Oh, yeah, Roman ruins. It makes me think. You see, my hometown was actually originally a Roman settlement.
Right.
So I wonder if that will be
Where's
in
that
the game.
located?
That's in the southwest. That's Exeter. So that's in Devon now. But it's I believe at the time it was Wessex, right? I think.
Right. Yeah.
I think if I look at a map of Wessex, it's southwest of the UK. So it's it's the West Country Peninsula, if you will. Yeah. Well, no, Wessex did encompass the southwest. Yeah, that's right. So Exeter is on there, even on ancient history maps of it. Like I see Wessex. Sorry, no, I see Exeter in Wessex. So I wonder if we can go there, and if we can, it's gonna be so fucking great because I'll be able to visit my hometown in Assassin's Creed. Obviously, I understand that they can't put every single location in the game, and there's a lot of locations in England. Believe me, like it's a very dense place.
That's where they need to put the bit of stones.
Yeah, the bit of stones will just be some.
They're gonna be somewhere.
It's Stonehenge, man. Bit of Stonehenge.
The bit of Stonehenge.
Yeah, the bit of Stonehenge.
That is technically a bit of stones, but is it the bit of stones?
Yeah. So there are some maps that I find where the West Country is more Wales, but that's actually just Cornwall on the maps that I can find, whereas Devon, which is the region I'm from, is actually part of Wessex. So that's pretty cool. So I do wonder if I'll be able to visit like the Roman ruins, not necessarily ruins, but like the settlement built on the Roman ruins of my hometown. Like wouldn't have been a massive place at this time, probably not a big city or anything like that. But like it's not a big city now. It's a city, sure, but it's a small one. It's only a city really because it has a cathedral, which is the qualification here in the UK for cities, I think. But it was a Roman settlement, and I really do hope it's in the game in some form, so I can, have a little tear up at that because I fucking love that place. I haven't been there in years. I haven't been back. I need to the last time I went to Exeter was 2017. It's been a long time. I spent a long time away from home. Is anyone of
your family still there?
My nan, but she has Alzheimer's, so as far as she's concerned, I visited last week, so it's fine. Sorry. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, my dad as well. My dad lives down there as well, so there's two.
He? I love how you start with your nan and not your dad.
Well, I needed to tell the joke.
Yeah, right, true.
The joke came to my brain and I went, yes.
Yeah, let's tell the inappropriate joke about my nan before I say my dad lives there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I respect that.
No, and I've got a lot of family that I don't talk to down there as well because we've always been the odd ones. Well,
that's a shock. No. That's a shock. You being the odd one, Ethan.
Oh, when you come from the West Country, everyone's fucking odd. Trust me, we're the most normal, and that's what's odd about us. And if we're the most normal, can you imagine some of the fucking weird Luddites you get down there? Fucking hell.
I'm scared.
I've got an uncle, a great uncle, who's got one arm and burns all over his face, and he's a fascinating character. I don't talk to him much because he believed my nan was faking her Alzheimer's, but I'm like, how do you fake that? How do you fake that? I'm like, my God.
What do you mean he thought she was faking her Alzheimer's?
Like I said, he's a fucking Luddite.
He's like, she's faking it. She doesn't have fucking Alzheimer's. She's a liar. She just wants to live in her home. What?
She just wants to, which is very rich coming from a guy who's been looked after by my nan all his life. But you know,
so she's trying to get out of looking after me.
Yeah,
I'm a grown man, but I can't look after myself.
At least you have both your arms. Fucking hellcat.
I'll never forget when we were filming the Four Pillars Assemble trailer, and it's in the blooper reel.
Where I was like, sword.
No, true. That's a great part. But when you had the line, "I've seen deaths like this before," we're talking about swag deaths, and I'm talking and we're talking about how people are dying in the video, and I'm like, so you need to say like, you've seen death like this before, and you're like, well, I have actually. I'm like, well, okay, like of course you have. Like that's such an easy thing.
Can I just address that was a joke? I didn't see deaths like that before. I killed them myself.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You do.
We've just gone on a mad tangent, haven't we? Oh, this is classic.
I'm on the last bite of this cookie, and I'm just like, this is maybe the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. I'm fucking losing my shit.
I'm so glad that I could share this experience with you, albeit being 12,000 miles away. Really, really humbling. It's a magical experience. But we were talking about before we were talking about my nan and her
and her fake Alzheimer's, fucking bitch.
Fake Alzheimer's. Thing is though, I'll give her a call at some point and then completely forget to give her a call, and she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I remember when you called the other day." I'll be like, I bet I did.
Yeah, it won't matter if you call her or not call her; she won't remember.
Yeah, exactly. Oh dear God, my last surviving grandparent, and I'm making jokes about her slowly dying from a fatal condition. See, if my dad ever watches this podcast, and the chances aren't necessarily high, but they aren't necessarily low.
Yeah,
he's gonna have a go at me, and I'm gonna be like, "Listen,
it's not
comedy,
impossible."
Man.
Yeah,
listen. How can you watch Ricky Gervais and be this touchy? And he'll be like, "Okay, it's fine."
True.
No, it's fine. I think we all agree it's good to laugh about these things.
Exactly.
But no, how did we get onto that?
Well, we were talking about the temples somehow, and the Roman ruins, and the
Roman ruins of my hometown. Yeah.
And
so I'd love to.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, but what I'd like to see as well is, obviously we've seen the Romans a little bit in Origins. So we've seen a lot of them sort of in their prime, if you will, before they became the Empire. Like, they weren't the Empire, they were the Republic at this time, at Caesar, because believe it or not, it was never. A lot of people confuse him and say that he was an emperor of Rome, which he never was. He never was emperor. His adopted son/nephew, which is fucking odd, but Rome. I believe, what's his name, Augustus. He was the he was the first official emperor of Rome, I do believe. And so we saw Rome before they were the empire that was Rome. They were as the Republic, and sure, that's great. We saw some lovely bits. Now this is going to be after them, and I'm curious to see what the difference will be between Roman forts that we see in Origins, like in their prime, if you will.
Yeah.
And Roman ruins, which is what we'll likely see in a lot of places in Valhalla, as it's set the best part of well over 900 years, later. Of course, the Rome's only fallen. I don't know. Rome fell. When did ancient Rome?
Roman Empire something AD.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, the Byzantine Empire still exists now at this time. So technically, the Roman Empire still exists, but not really.
Yeah, the Western Roman Empire, which was
it didn't fall till the Ottomans took Constantinople. Then the Roman Empire technically fell.
It was late 5th century is when I guess Rome probably fell. So it's long enough for a lot of places to fall into disrepair. A lot of the structural integrity will be intact because Rome. Like, the Romans built shit to last. Have you seen their roads? Fucking hell, straight line 3 days.
No, I've walked through Pompeii. They survived volcano ash. Like,
fucking hell.
It's unreal what they built and how well it survives. One thing is the fact that they talk about how this game's more grounded in what Assassin's Creed is built on, which Assassin's Creed is science fiction, not fantasy. And Origins was more science fiction, where it played with the gods and the religion stuff through like visions and things like that, and they found ways to kind of get around it without being too fantasy. while trying to get those mini fantasy elements in it, but they weren't real. Like, they were actually fake in the game with like computer glitches, whereas in
it was more of a mysticism.
Minotaurs exist. Medusa's like, are you fucking retarded? This is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And,
no, that is.
And now they're going more grounded. So seeing these Roman ruins and going through these ancient places, it's
gonna have a mystique to it.
Yeah, it'll have the mystique to it. There's not gonna be fucking minotaurs coming out at you. And if there are, I'm gonna fucking break my Xbox. I will break the fuck out of it. If I see a fucking minotaur, I will kill myself. No,
it's odd because there's no like, I don't know of any source which has put a minotaur in England. But if anyone's going to put one there, it'll be Ubisoft. They'd do it.
Don't do it.
I don't think. What is it? Montreal 3, which is the head studio working on this game, right? Which is Ashraf Ismail and his hefty crew. No, I don't think that they let it fly. I think they go.
No, it's just Yves Guillemot comes back. He's like, great game and everything. One little thing I need you guys to give me. That maybe I know you're making a game for the fans, but can you give me one thing? And I was like, what? I'll give you one. And he's like, I want a minotaur.
I want a minotaur. Where? It was like, where? In the middle of London. Okay. And that was it. Oh god, I would be fucking alarmed if that happened. But I don't think I'd be able to control my laughter for a little while after that. I think it would be random impulses. Like in Joker, where our boy Joaquin Phoenix breaks out into like fits of laughter at really inappropriate times. That would be me for a little while after seeing a Minotaur in Valhalla. I'd be really. I don't think I'd be sad because I don't know what to expect anymore. Like, sure, I have faith in Ashraf Ismail and his team and Damian McDevitt, and I know that they're gonna fucking make an experience the best that they possibly can, and I don't doubt that for a second. But if I see a fucking unexplainable mythical creature that is just there for the sake of it, I am going to be very shocked. But I don't think I'd be surprised.
Yeah, you're right. I would be surprised, but I'd also end my life and break my Xbox.
Your Xbox would have a fist hole in it.
Holy shit.
You would rip into that thing and then rip it out. I don't know if you're talking about your Xbox getting punched or the cookies that you're scanning.
No, I finished the cookies now. I'm just sort of like licking the bowl, like I'm putting my finger through like the melted chocolate and ice cream and just like, just have that taste. It's like cocaine. It's like I'm just taking those cocaine boogers out and eating them.
Lovely cocaine.
Lovely cocaine boogers.
We love talking about.
There's cocaine on my thing. And I was like, yeah, I'm not a drug addict. It's fine, guys. It's all good.
You see, I can't see what you're doing. I'm sure on this video I'm going to be very silly for saying this, but it just sounds like you did a bump, and I know that was deliberate, but it does sound like you did a fucking line of cocaine. Yeah, right.
I didn't do a line of cocaine, just so you're aware.
But
you won't know.
Promise me.
Promise me. I promise you, I didn't do cocaine.
Thank you. I don't condone the use of the cocaine drug. It's too white and privileged and powdery. I can't allow it.
Right.
I can't allow that.
We don't allow white privilege on this podcast.
We don't.
Not at all. Right. Is there any more? I'm trying to think if there's any more interesting Valhalla topics. We've gone through a lot. We've gone through
the Roman ruins and how they look. We've gone through
King Alfred
and possible other locations on the map and things, and little parts of how Alfred could play into the story, because he's obviously going to be key, because they emphasize they put emphasis on him in the CGI trailer. You don't do that unless there is some relevance to it. Obviously, I don't know many CGI trailers that put things in there that they don't intend to expand upon, besides from maybe Assassin's Creed 3's battle, which was like, where was that then?
Yeah.
That didn't happen, did it? Instead, you had to flank, you had to run around. But no, I don't want to get right involved in that. But okay, I was really disappointed. But I also, as far as Assassin's Creed 3 goes, that was way down the list. So it was one of those. But no, we've spoken about a lot of Valhalla-related businesses, I guess. I don't know anything else that I can really talk about off the top of my head. But there are a few other bits of information that we do know about. Of course, such as the structure of side quests and characters. One thing that I found is with the ship that you get, like the little ship. It's a long ship, isn't it? You can have 8 crew members aboard it, each of which are actual characters that you'll find in the world, and they'll have their own backstories and they'll say their own dialogue and things like that. which I think talking about earlier, we were talking about Mass Effect and how it handles characters and world development and world building. I think of this and I think of characters and I go, they're actual characters with personalities, and I go, yes, that is a big thing as well.
Yeah.
That's something that I like. I'd rather, like, Black Flag, as much as I love it, if there's one thing that I hated, like one thing that I despised, is that the only crew member whose name I knew was Adewale's. I don't know any of the other cunts. They all looked the same. They were all wearing blue garb and looked dull.
It's the one thing I'll give Assassin's Creed 3. I loved that brotherhood system of each character was individually skilled individual character. I love I could customize their look a bit more, but I love that I knew who they were, their skills were present, and they had a story.
Yeah, no, I liked that. And I feel like even the one thing that I like about when I think about outside of Assassin's Creed, when I was thinking about Mass Effect again, is in Mass Effect 2, you actually can, when you discover the Normandy's crash site for the original SSV Normandy, you can learn the names of every single crew member.
Yeah,
like,
right. True. True.
All the crew members that you don't talk to, they have names. They have names because there's still some importance to them in the universe. Whereas Assassin's Creed, with its ship mechanic, with the crew, one thing that they haven't assigned until Valhalla, evidently, is importance of the crew. They've not established them as characters. They've not established them as names or people that exist in the universe. Which is even
hilarious, that line from Black Flag where Adewale's talking about, he's like, oh, I've established myself in this country called Jackdaw, where I know all the citizens and they know my name. Like, I don't know their names.
I know all these citizens' names.
It's like, well, fucking, I don't know a fucking single one of these cunts other than you, Adewale.
Yeah, no, it's really funny. No, one thing I really found, it's one of the places where I think it's one of the things, because it's the same team, isn't it? At the head, it's as Black Flag and Valhalla. Yeah. It's one of the things they thought of as well. So we put this line in there, but it actually means nothing. In fact, it means less than nothing, because we didn't elaborate on it. We didn't do that, and I feel like that's them rectifying that by going, sure, your crew's smaller, long ships are smaller, but at least you know all your crew members' names. You can take them on raids, and then of course you've got your custom Vikings, which are just Vikings that you make in like a FIFA player creator or something. I don't know. Yeah. And you can put them on there as well. Now I'm not so keen on that. Like, I don't mind customizing like looks of characters and creating characters for some reason or another. But I feel like I look at it and I go, is this just a cheap implementation of a live service? And I worry what that'll take away from it. I'd rather have the characters that you can meet and encounter, and these guys are cool to raid with, and they're cool to get about with, and it feels like a right adventure because you're not alone in it. You feel like you're a part of this crew with these characters that you know. And if there's one thing that Assassin's Creed needs to do when it comes to games that have the naval, it's the one thing they've not done, which is establish humanity in characters by making them exist beyond the ship, which is something that there's one of my biggest critiques of Black Flag, I reckon, is that none of your crewmates, besides from Adewale, exists beyond the ship. They're just there to operate the ship. They're just there to be part of that crew. They don't have names. They don't really have unique faces. They all look the same, and none of them are interesting to think about. And you save them, sure, every now and then, but that's just a dull mechanic to put out there as if you need to use it, which is fine. I guess it fills the game. I just think that this is the right move, having the characters that you can raid on your ship be actual characters that have names, unique faces, unique looks, and maybe even unique benefits and unique dialogue. And I feel like that's important for Assassin's Creed. It's that intricacy, if you will, that a lot of the games have been missing. That is an attention to detail in some things. Like, sure, Origins did okay with detail. It was pretty fantastic at times, actually. For example, your hallucinations in the dunes and little bits of information while going through tombs and all other kinds of details in that game. And I think it was fantastic. But if there's one thing that they threw that away with Odyssey, and then there was no attention to detail. So I feel like, to double down on the point that Origins is a better representation of the direction of the franchise, or the intended direction overall, they need to apply that attention to detail again. And I feel like that's another way that they're going to do that. And if there's one thing that I reckon Valhalla will probably excel in, it is that detail. And we also know now that the world is handcrafted. Like, apparently,
well, they say,
according to Ashraf Ismail.
Allegedly.
According to Ashraf Ismail. Allegedly handcrafted. Like, sure. obviously everything is handcrafted in a lot of games. How much is handcrafted is the question. Like, obviously, Odyssey may not be the most in-depth open world ever, but they didn't. It's not procedurally generated. So what does handcrafted even mean?
Well, like I think he's meaning each location is individually handcrafted rather than literally someone built, this is what a bandit camp looks like. And they built that as like an asset, and then they just copy and pasted it 70 times throughout the map.
70 times in the first quarter of the map, Jesus.
Yes, sorry, my bad. 70,000 times.
There you go. There we go. Multiplication does not exist in this game.
There was like 3 variations of bandit camps, and they just copy and pasted it 100 times each.
So what they mean? So let's assume that what it means is every location, probably the key locations, are individually handcrafted to be that location. In a sense, to like, that's good. That's good news. Like, that is what we want. Really, is to be able to tell the difference between one location and another. And obviously, we know that all the different regions apparently will also have different cultures and be a different environment altogether, which is another good thing. You want to be able to tell the difference between where you are at one time compared to the other. With Odyssey, I couldn't tell where I was at any given point, no matter what I was doing. In games like The Witcher 3, which is the best RPG in my opinion, you know the difference between Toussaint, for example, in the DLC, and Velen or Skellige, or the city of Novigrad, or White Orchard, or or Kaer Morhen. You know the difference. It's they make it very obvious.
You're knocking my fucking mic. Jesus. Go on.
That's fine. It's fine. The mic needs to be boxed right in. No, it's important that you have different kinds of areas. So these different areas have different architecture, different music, maybe different weather, sort of different lighting, maybe a little bit different characters as well. So, for example, in one region, let's say, characters will have a certain accent and they'll have a certain way of life. In another region, maybe they'll have a different accent and a different way of life. And when we're talking about a map of England here, I don't know anywhere where, like, obviously I don't know what it was like back in the day, but I can't imagine it was too much different on this point. But the UK altogether, as far as accents are concerned, is a massively diverse place. I think you can go something. I think you only need to go like, I think it's every 20 square miles or something. The accent noticeably changes. Like accents are different in different towns here. Like, there's a town near me where the accent is vastly different to how it is here. Like, obviously I'm in the north, so a lot of people sound like they're in Game of Thrones or something. But if you go to a different town, like, just visit, you know the difference between the accents, because they have different quirks, if you will. Mostly similar, but there are noticeable differences. And I feel like that's one thing that you'd want to emphasize in a game with that as a setting, is the different accents in different places. And that would help distinguish these different regions.
It's hard to do. And like there's a lot they're saying. It's a lot of talk.
There's a lot. That's the thing that I think we talked about before, is there's a lot that they've been talking about, but we haven't seen much yet. Like, sure, so I love the idea of different regions feeling completely different. That is kind of what you have to do, but I want to see it.
Yeah.
I want to see this. I will see it before I believe it. But if they've said it as part of their promotional, until proven otherwise, let's just assume that there's some truth to it. Let's just roll with it. Not necessarily overhype it, but they've said that. We can acknowledge that as what they've said. Yeah. So we can acknowledge and appreciate what they've said. And then when we see it, we can see what's real and what's not. And that is something that I think is kind of ideal, is what they've said. A lot of things that I'd like, that is one thing that I'm curious about. Like, they've said a lot of things that pique my interest. They've said a couple of things like map bigger than Odyssey, which makes me go, okay, but what does that actually mean? And there are a few things. I don't think there's anything really that I've looked at and gone, okay, nothing quite yet. Because they're only saying things at the moment. Until we see things, we won't know what's going to be good and what's going to be bad. Yeah. So I am curious.
We're just going to wait for the game to come out, which I'm more than happy to do.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to see some gameplay beforehand, obviously, which we will.
But we're not going to fully judge everything they've said or what we've seen completely until, of course, we've played the game.
No, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to say that the game's going to be incredible because it sounds great. Because it sounds great. That's all it is. Until we see the gameplay, I couldn't give you any kind of rundown on my actual opinions on what the game itself looks like.
Yeah, true. That's 100%.
And so, And so there are a lot of things that we could talk about with Valhalla, sitting here all day.
True.
But a lot of it,
we don't know.
That sounds great. That sounds ideal.
Yeah.
Or how does it look though?
I'll tell you what, Ethan. I'll tell you what we have seen gameplay for.
The Last of Us Part 2.
The Last of Us Part 2. I love that you know how I work. I love how you know how I operate.
Oh, yeah.
We have seen gameplay for The Last of Us Part 2. And
yes, we have.
Did you watch the State of Play the other day?
I did. Yes, I did.
I actually watched it. I'd never watched State of Play. So I literally sat back. I'm like, James isn't here. I have to like properly know what I'm doing. Like I spent an hour watching your Valhalla videos, and then I watched the Last of Us Part 2 State of Play. First of all, I've got a bunch of spoilers that have been leaked to me, but who knows if they're even true now. It's kind of questionable with what we've been hearing. Like,
well,
is there a conspiracy about fake leaks? Are they all fake? Is the context wrong? I don't know. Have you avoided all the spoilers for this?
I've mostly, I think, avoided them. I'm sure people commented some absurd shit, and I honestly didn't even want to believe it. So whether or not it's real or not, I couldn't tell you. Yeah. But I think for the most part, I've avoided actual spoilers. So I'm quite happy on that front. I know that spoilers with The Last of Us Part 2 is like a field full of landmines right now.
Yeah,
so it's a bit tough, but the game does come out in less than a month, right? So
yeah,
it's not that long that we have to keep suffering in that. And I know that James's channel has a blacklist on most of the Last of Us Part 2 stuff.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be too much of a problem here.
Yeah, it should be. It should be fine.
So I do too.
So what do you feel? What do you feel about watching all this gameplay and hearing them talk about the story and what's going through? How do you feel about The Last of Us Part 2 right now?
Well, it's basically a continuation of The Last of Us, isn't it? So it might not necessarily be picking up where we left off fully, but it's going to be a continuation of that story in that universe. For example, how it's developed over the years between 1 and 2. Obviously, it's not a massive time gap. It's what? How old's? Hang on.
She's 19.
5 years.
Last of Us Part
5
2,
years.
So yeah.
5 years. 5 years gap because she's 14 and 1, I believe.
Something like that.
Yeah. So that's 5 years in which we'll see how this world's developed. Now, if there's one thing that I look at when I watch this gameplay is, I've got it up now as I'm talking about it as well, just to jog my memory, is it looks absolutely stunning. Like, people have been comparing it to previous gameplay examples from the game, from shots that they've shown before, and they've shown that they've even improved them. A lot of games downgrade visually, but this one seems to have, if anything, upgraded itself.
Yeah, 100%.
Visually speaking, this game looks stunning.
Naughty Dog aren't known for lying in marketing. They're known for they've normally been pretty good about showing. They don't need to, because their games look that good. They just show what their game looks like.
Yeah, they just show off the game. All they want to do is show the game, and that's pretty damn cool. And I really do really like a game that looks good. Obviously, it doesn't matter too much, but I think at this point you have to appreciate the graphical fidelity of a game, if you will. Like how realistic is it? Like, and it just looks fucking fantastic. And that's one of the things that I keep noticing when I watch it, is the visuals, and I just can't wait to play it myself.
I've got a word for you. This is the word I'm going to use to describe the gameplay from watching the State of Play. Anxious.
Anxious.
Now, what I mean by that is, I am going to be so anxious while I play this. The tension in the gameplay is fucking palpable. And the one thing I give The Last of Us Part 1 that's so good is it does tension so well in gameplay. This looks even more incredible because you're playing and it's almost based on the character you're playing as. Now, stereotypically, of course, you're playing as Joel, an older man who's gone through a lot in the first one. Now you're playing as a character and you're protecting a young girl. Now you're playing as this young girl that we have as a player, this sort of nurture relationship with, that we've developed as a player to this character in the game. Now we're playing as this character. Yes, she's older. We know this chick's tough. We know that for a fact. However, I feel like there's even more tension because you have this different relationship when you're playing as this young woman that you want to keep her safe as the player. Like when you're Joel, if I got shot once or twice, I'm like, oh fuck, damn it, that's right. Like get under cover, reload, fucking shoot. I don't want Ellie to get hurt at all. Like I can imagine myself playing this. I'm like, fuck, I gotta be so silent. I cannot fucking get caught. but the ways of which they've got these fucking dogs sniffing after you, people can see you. No matter there's no complete hiding spots. Like no matter how, at some point when they get close enough, they will see you. The tension is unbelievable. I am going to put it out there that this game looks like it will be the most tense game ever made.
Yeah, I reckon it.
From start to finish, I'm going to use years off my life by the time I finish this game.
It's going to be an absolute anxiety attack it's going to be a panic attack in the making. This game is. Now that's the thing about The Last of Us. It's one of the things that I could appreciate about it is it doesn't exactly give you downtime. It's a game where it's more or less tense from start to finish. Sure, there are points where it's a little bit lighter and points where you can sort of let your guard down a bit, but for the most part, it's just tense. It just is. That's all it is. And it's got a great story, of course, and you want to get through it, but you know that you have to do it to a very to a quality degree, if you will. So, for example, you can't just fucking go through like hordes of enemies loud and proud. You have to be smart. You have to hide. You have to use stealth. Sometimes you have to conserve ammunition. You have to be careful what you use and when and how that and how important that might be. Or otherwise, you might make your life very difficult later, and you have to weigh up the options. Is there another way in which I can tackle this situation? And this looks like a game where you're going to be constantly thinking, is there another better way that I can handle this without wasting resources, or without giving myself away, or without making my life harder down the line? When it comes to games like this, I think, Jesus, this could be like it's a very tactical game, if you will.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it, but it's a very, very simple system.
I'd say the most tactical.
But it's it's a simple system, but it works because it's based on what the game gives you and how the game is structured beyond
and
what
believability. And if you build tension, you build
have to think for the character.
Yeah, you build a care. And I think that care is already established, and even more so being Ellie, this young girl that we have that nurture relationship with.
Yeah.
I think, so many people, there's reactions that, and spoilers that are out there, and people have certain reactions to the game. And all I'm going to say is, if there's any game that this quote is going to ring true to, it might not be truer in any game than The Last of Us Part 2. It is about the journey, not the destination. This game is about the journey. Maybe the end won't be fucking everything you want. I don't fucking know. Maybe it will. But I tell you what I do know. The journey there and the enjoyment from start to finish of this game and the gameplay and the tension and the character development is going to be amazing. It's going to be unbelievable, and I'm going to have a phenomenal time playing this game. And yes, there might come a time where we play this game, we get to the end, and we don't agree with where the story went, and we're going to have real problems. I don't know. But
maybe
it'll never take away from how well built this game looks, how smooth the gameplay is, how realistic it is, the tension that's going to be developing throughout this, the different character moments we're going to see. It looked great from that game, the 10 minutes of gameplay they showed individually with Ellie. We know there's going to be multiple characters Ellie spends time with throughout this game. There's different seasons, like the first Last of Us, different areas we're going to. There's going to be a lot of depth here. There's going to be a lot to explore. It's going to be a lengthy game, I feel. And I am more excited now than I ever have been for The Last of Us Part 2 after that state of play. It looks phenomenal. It looks phenomenal.
It does. It looks both graphically and as far as the gameplay is concerned. One thing that has always held me back in my ratings of The Last of Us as a game, and I know that you probably agree with me on this point, is I'm not a huge fan of zombie games.
I hate zombie games. Hate zombie games. Hate zombie movies. Hate zombie everything.
Yeah, no,
boring,
I agree.
unoriginal.
I absolutely agree. It's exactly, and people do say that, and people say when you bring this up about The Last of Us that it's not technically a zombie game.
It is though,
and it's as correct as that might be. But the core concept is still zombie.
Yeah.
So although it might not necessarily be at face value, that's something that I always think about, and I get frustrated at zombie games because I like the story, sure, but I know it's a game that I'm going to get very frustrated at when I play it. I can just tell that it's one of those games that I'll love it because it's a great story, and The Last of Us is a game that I really did enjoy. But I don't think it's going to be one of my favourite games ever, based on the fact that I think zombie games don't really mix well with me.
Agree, 100% agree with you, Ethan. 100% agree.
Like it's gonna be a game that I'll love, I'll play, and it might be one of the best games of 2020. I mean, what competition is there at this point, really? There are a few games, sure,
Cyberpunk, Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a list that you can probably make. It's probably a list on one hand at this point.
Yeah.
You've got Cyberpunk Goes to Tsushima, The Last of Us Part 2, and what's the other one?
Valhalla potentially.
Valhalla potentially, and yeah. So those are the games that you got. So the running's pretty slim. There's some incredible sounding games though, sure. But when it comes to a game that I personally think is the best going, I don't think it's going to hit that because of the zombie concept not agreeing with me.
Those will be my least favourite bits. But there is a lot of that human interaction. That's the most tense to me. It's not as zombies to me. Tension's gone. I'm like, this is dumb. Yeah. Zombies stupid. Whatever. It'll just annoy me, and I'll just try to shoot my way out. But when it's like you've got people, and there's these people who want to kill Ellie, it's like, oh fuck, that's tense.
Yeah, no, but this seems to be more based on the people than like a lot of the gameplay on this.
The Last of Us does right. The Last of Us has a balance there, and that's why it's
The Last of Us
the only
is quite
zombie
balanced.
Title I really liked. I hate zombie everything.
Oh, I agree.
The Last of Us Part 1's the only one I'm like, wow, that was actually, I enjoyed that. I hated most of the zombie bits I was like, about. But for a zombie game, which it definitely is a zombie game, and if anyone that tried to tell me that it wasn't, it is. It's fine though. It's okay. That's fine. But it is a zombie game, and it was really good. It was still really good.
It's a game built on the concept of zombie elements, as a lot of the game itself of The Last of Us doesn't actually deal with them. They're just there for a lot of it. And I feel like that we're probably going to see less of them in this than we did in Part 1, because a lot of the gameplay that we're watching from the State of Play is Ellie versus other people who are,
hopefully they're just used effectively. It's like, use them in the right way and then it'll be fine.
Oh yeah, no, it's one of those things. They're going to be using them mostly in the mix, and I think there's one thing that they're going to do in The Last of Us Part 2 that is something that I think they're going to bring that tension to the zombies. Is it's not just, you're not going to be dealing with one or the other, zombies, people, or infected or people. You can have scenarios where you are introduced. Well, when you're brought into a scenario where you could have both. Yeah, basically that's it. So you could use throw in like distractions and get this bloody clicker to attack, or this entire crowd to attack these other people who are, your adversaries, if you will, and then you can flush them all out with that, and they'll chase them out of there, which is what they showed in the gameplay and things like that. And I feel like that is where The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be very tactical. And the best part about it, as far as the zombie aspect is concerned, is it plays it down. Like it's there. It's a huge part of the game, but it's not the biggest part. Like it's only one key part. Like, sure, this is happening. This is a problem, but there are many other things that are happening as well. And the zombies aren't your only enemies. Well, we're using the word zombies when they're probably the better word to use in this sense is infected, if you will.
Yes.
Like, they're not your only enemies. Like, people are just a big, if not a bigger threat, because they can shoot you.
My problem with most zombie media is the overuse of zombies, and what The Last of Us can do, especially in this game coming up, is use them scarcely, and it makes them more effective in the tension.
Yeah, and more terrifying.
Exactly, right. They're more terrifying when you're like, oh shit, this is such a rare thing to see a zombie, and they're actually super deadly, rather than just, most zombie media is just like, let's throw 1,000 zombies at them and scare the shit out of them all the time. Zombie from start to finish. It's like,
there's nothing scary about zombies.
Nothing.
Like, I'll say this, I've never liked The Walking Dead, ever. I've never been able to get into it. I've never been able to enjoy it. I think my mum watches it, and every time she watches it, I can't even be in the fucking room because it fucking bores me endlessly to have it on television. And it's also a very odd show for other reasons, one of which being the volume problem. It just doesn't want to figure out if it wants to be quiet or loud. All the dialogue is quiet, all the fucking explosions are fucking, I don't know. I've heard fighter jets quieter than that shit. But my point is, I can't get into zombies as a concept. So when the story concept is built around characters in a world that just happens to have some modicum of a zombie concept, though it's not necessarily that what's the word, major, but also it's a bit smarter than just throwing loads of zombies at you. And if there's one thing about The Last of Us and how it handles the infected in that, is that there are different types of them. Some of them, they just run at you, but they have to detect you first. There's a stealth aspect to it, which adds to the tension as well, because you don't want to be detected by these creatures. They're a bit scarcer as well. They're a bit stronger than your average zombie, say in fucking Dead Rising, for example, where you can just cut them down by the hundreds. And as a result of all of this, it creates this shocking, like, intense atmosphere. And one thing that I do worry about, though, is how in the state of play, they did say there are some more terrifying new infected that you can encounter, but we won't get into those today. And then there's like this fucking long screech, and I thought, oh no, not this. I thought, oh no, oh dear God. Because there's one part of The Last of Us which fucking, I don't know, it was horrifying. Do you know, you probably don't remember, but it was one specific point where you're in like a, I don't know what it is. It's a dark interior, basically.
Yeah.
And you're stuck in there, and you've got to take out all the infected there. And there's a couple of the big bastards and some clickers and some other ones. Not necessarily a huge amount.
I think I know the part you're talking about, but I wouldn't know. Like, it's just.
But you're stuck in. You're like in a warehouse. Yeah. You're like in a warehouse, and it's sort of like one of those. So it's when you're stuck in those situations, you have to think tactically. You can't take them all on at once. It's just not. It's not possible. You'll die.
My thing is with the zombies is don't take them on. Find a way around them.
Yeah, no. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I prefer to find my way around them. But in some situations like that one, it forces you to take them on. And I feel like when it comes to more terrifying zombie archetypes or whatever, they're going to be some where you have to take them on, fully. It won't necessarily be a very key aspect to the game in the sense that it'll be all the time, but I reckon it'll happen every now and then where you'll have to face them. There'll at least be one point where you have to face them, like even if it is seemingly overwhelming at first. And those are my least favourite parts of the game because I prefer to just avoid, if you get me.
Yeah, totally.
It's much better than, having to fight them all the time because it plays into that. When it does that, it plays into the dull trope of...
I just get over it. I feel like there's way less variety to combating zombies. It's just like... fucking just keep shooting them until they die. Whereas people, there's a lot more. It's like you can kill them with one shot. So you're going to do it silently. You're going to do it with a gun. You're going to sneak up on them. You're going to go around them. You're going to distract them. There's a lot more options with a human enemy, where there's way less with a zombie or something that can just take a million hits. So I just tend to avoid zombies altogether. And zombie games. But The Last of Us Part 2 is a different story. And this may very well be, and probably will be, the best zombie media I've ever experienced and will actually really love.
To be fair, when it comes to zombie media, there's not much competition.
No.
The Last of Us
1 is the only one I like, and it was an older. I played it late. I'd already played Uncharted 4, so I was like, I knew what Naughty Dog games could be like. So now I'm like, I get to see the next step up after Uncharted 4 in terms of what the gameplay could be like, and it's a zombie story like The Last of Us, right, that I actually enjoy. So Last of Us Part 2 is culminating into being, to me, my favorite sort of zombie media that I'll ever experience, which is, like you said, not much competition, but ultimately, I'm so excited for The Last of Us.
I'm excited for
only a couple weeks.
Yeah, no, I only played the Last of Us last year, to be fair.
Oh, right.
That was my first experience of the game, and I was like, "Oh, this is
like 3 years ago."
It was like, "Oh wow, this is a cracking time," Like I was like, I enjoyed it, but like I said, I do get frustrated at games that involve certain aspects that I'm not a huge fan of, and The Last of Us is one of those games where it does have that zombie element as well, and that is something that I'll always struggle with. Like, sure, I might like the game for other reasons, but it's not because of the zombies.
Yeah,
it's never going to be to do with the zombies.
Yeah,
like I won't
100%.
When I judge it, I'll be judging it as the narrative experience that it is over the core zombie concept that it might have. Like, sure, post-apocalypse, there are zombies about, but that's not what the game tries. That's not what the game prioritizes in its storytelling. It prioritizes the characters. It prioritizes the how you get from A to B, how you avoid confrontation, how you handle confrontations, and how your character develop and how the character develops. Like how Joel and Ellie develop in The Last of Us. How they become, how it goes from just another job for Joel to a commitment, if you will, and stuff like that. And I feel like that is more important to The Last of Us as a game than zombies.
Yeah,
and that's what I prefer. I just prefer to not have to deal with zombies. So when I'll be reviewing it, if I do that, I won't be talking much about the zombies unless I have to. I'll be like, fucking hell, they exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, they might surprise us. There might be something we enjoy. Who knows?
Maybe there'll be a zombie with a harmonica. Now that would be great.
Now you're thinking, Ethan.
I've got my thinking cap on today.
Yeah,
I don't have anything on. I have headphones on right now, but it's been telling me, right, there's something missing from zombies, and I think it's looking ridiculous. So, you know what? Replaying The Last of Us, but modding it so all the clickers look like clowns. I don't know if that would be scarier or funnier. I don't know, but it would be an experience.
It just reminds me of Family Guy when Peter joins the army, and they're all and Peter's dressed as a clown, and he just walks past all the soldiers. He's like, "You guys are stupid. They're gonna be looking for army guys."
Fair enough.
Oh god,
I do love a bit of Family Guy. It's the kind of thing it's the kind of thing you watch in the small hours, and with a beverage, and you're laying in bed, and it's great. But I don't think I'd religiously watch it to the point where I know every single episode, so I don't necessarily know what you mean. But
it's a great bit. It's a great bit. But
I'll have to find it. I'll have to find it and watch it myself. That one episode, it will be mine. I'll be like me.
I'll find the clip for you. Send it to you.
Beautiful.
But yeah, The Last of Us Part 2 comes out in a couple weeks after the next As Always podcast. So the next As Always podcast will dive in to a preview of The Last of Us Part 2 even deeper, and go into real story predictions and where we think the narrative's going to go. And hopefully no one spoils anything for us, so that'll be great. So, yeah, that's it for the list, though. Ethan.
That's the list, is it?
Thank you.
That's a love.
I honestly can't thank you enough for being here and being my special guest co-host for the As Always podcast this episode. It really, really does mean a lot.
Well, the best part of the 4 pillars is you'll never have to thank me. It's just good fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
If anything, thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me fill this void in your life, albeit very meagerly compared to James's presence. But I appreciate that you thought of me, and we had this great conversation.
Yeah, this was a great time, and it really is. This is what I love. These podcasts, like any chance we get to do it, I want to do it. This is my escape, and the show goes on, and if something's going on with me, I'd want James to do the same. So. I want the people to get these sort of discussions, and I know that if I ever get you or I get George on, it's going to be that. You guys are my fucking brothers. I love you guys.
Yeah, it's easy enough.
And I appreciate you for being here and having a great show. That was a lot of fun, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's no worries at all. It's always good fun to have a conversation, whether it be whenever really, because when we have when you guys have like us on or whatever, like when we're on, it's just great. It's always a great time to have a conversation with you and James, and it's really quite humbling to for you to have thought of me when James took this break. You came to me and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't expect that, to be fair.
Really?
I didn't think. I just thought that you'd just give it a break and just go from there. But like you said, obviously that's not how you roll. Yeah. So I just appreciate. There's a million people that you could probably have chosen, like George, for example, just disqualified for this sort of thing, if not more so, because he can actually apparently speak, and I can't. And I just go all over the place.
You can speak just fine.
I can talk for England, except England tends to get bombed afterwards, so it's fun. But I do appreciate that the thought fell on me, and that you gave me the opportunity to just come on and have a good chat with you, because I'm always happy to have a chat. It's what I like, just I like talking about things. I'm a right waffler.
Yeah,
and I love it. and to be fair, nobody knows that more than my mother. Oh God,
I bet.
I bother my mum endlessly, and it's where I'm going after we wrap up here. I'm going to go down and annoy my mother by saying something absurd, and my mother will look at me and go, "What the fuck?
Who have I raised?
What the fuck did I drop you on the head or something? Like, where is your brain?" I've been like, sold it.
Well, you were talking about beating your dog and your nan with Alzheimer's, so
Well,
it's possible.
Gallows humor,
Yeah. Oh man. Well, like you said, like I thought about giving this podcast a break, but then I thought about my life without this podcast, and I didn't like it. So I was like, who am I going to call? It's got to be one of the pillars. So you coming on, I know it's going to be an awesome time. So once again, appreciate it. And thank you to all the people that are right now listening or watching this podcast. Appreciate all of you, especially, of course, our Patreon producers, King Richard III Henry, Damian, Avry Dobbs, Josh Devillier, a red-crowned crane, helped kill my family, aka Olberik, DIDDLOTIC Viridian, Real Simran Hawkins, aka 12 and Ballsack 47. Without you producers, this show wouldn't happen. I wouldn't be sitting here with Ethan right now. So thank you guys so much. I'm sure James will be back very soon and better than ever, raring to go. I was just texting him a little bit during the show. He's doing good. So hopefully we'll see him back sooner rather than later. Next week on patreon.com/, as always, the Clubhouse Podcast, I'll be doing an episode with, as you saw earlier, my housemate, Jared. We're going to get drunk, sit upstairs at my dining room table with a couple of microphones and just talk absolute shit with your topics. So you can get involved with People's Podcast, which is $1 a month. Go do it. And for $5 or more a month, you can join the ridiculous podcast list that I'm about to read right now. So thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, to King Richard III, Henry, Damian, Avry Dobbs, Josh Devillier, a red-crowned crane, helped kill my family, aka Olberik, DIDDLOTIC, Viridian, Real Simon Hawkins, aka HMO Ballsack 47, Adam Sunling, Casey Wood, Pink Flame 313, Tony, The Arbiter's Delightful Penis, Alfie Rosell, Drowns Cats, Jesper Olsen, Limestrad, Mario 5380 is the king of RPGs, Kimasaba Gamer Cream Pies, Red Crowned Crane, aka also known as aka The Creed, Josh J. Anderson, Fat Fuck Cuck, Brendan Obiku Overlord, Matt Ravjai, Red Crowned Crane, Bleeding Edge 274, Zixon, Benedict Clobbers, Gwen Hughes 2018, 1998, 20 Max H, Gina's doing bits in the coal mines, Owen Brain Zik, aka Frank from Destination Wedding, Son of a Bitch, OG Doggo, Harrisy, aka Bad Assassin, Noah Watch, Furious Coco, Sab 2557, Nick Milvey, ACMJS, Radok, Casper Coral, Smakesy Assassin, Connor DeRose, Bully in the Alley, Connor Knowles, Kyle S. Jaws, Victor Eliason, Emil Capel, Joshua Mora, Walshy, Ginkgo Swag, Red Chunked Crane, Master Bash, Ashton, aka The Weekend Simp, Conversations, plus our new bro, George Welford, Joe the Sexy Boy Smith, Joe aka Red Crowned Crane, Evan Brown, Winona Ryder, aka Lindsay from Destination Wedding, Luca Alfie Robert, Brian Ford, aka Red Crowned Smurf, Silly Sally, Swiftly Shooed, 7 Silly Sheep, the 7 Silly Sheep, Silly Sally Shooed, Shilly Shallied South, Fishy, Ethan, our good friend and guest co-host right here, Team Anna Travis, Billy the Team Ton, Mike Captain Robinson, and Gamer, I hardly know her. Thanks to Sweet Vintage Life for helping power this podcast. Thank you once again for listening. And ladies and gentlemen, we will see you all next time. Thank you again. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.